Good morning. How are we doing today?
I'm vibing.
Good.
That's most definitely what's up.
Glad to hear it. How is everybody? Everybody ready to talk about Black Myth Wukong? And all the goodies involved. Well, there's a lot to talk about, including one of the worst reviews I've seen in a minute. It's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be good. Okay. There we go. There we go. How is everybody? How is everybody? Oh no, it's not the IGN one. Sure ain't. Sure ain't. The worst one I've seen in a minute comes from the one and only Screen Rant. It's, yeah. It's just, it is the most, like, stretch of a review ever. And then they're like, we're not being unfair. We're not, like, we're trying to just talk about the gameplay here, okay? But also, this game where you play as a monkey fighting bears and tigers and dragons really needs more diversity. It's just like, guys. And then they bring up the article from IGN, like the hit piece they did on them, and it's just, it's like, what are we doing, guys? So, anyway, we'll talk about that. But I can pull this, and let me pull up the official Metacritic. Also, Leo, if you're in chat, I think I saw you in chat earlier. I sent you an email. If you'd be able to help me out with something. I describe it all in that email, but yeah, check that. Okay. This is, I guess we should just lead into this fully. New segment. So, in case somehow you've missed it, we had reviews drop for Black Myth Wukong. And Joraptor and I both made our predictions. Joraptor predicted, I believe, 82. I predicted 84. It looks like Joraptor is going to take the cake, however, because it is now sitting at 82. We were both in the ballpark, but Joraptor once again just hit the nail right on the head. Say what you will about Joraptor. He is very, very good at predicting Metacritic scores. This is like the third time we've done this where we make our predictions like a week ahead of time, and then he gets it like exactly right. It's kind of ridiculous, but anyway. The reviews are generally favorable. Honestly, a score in the 80s is a good score. What you have to look at is why it was pulled down from like the 9 range, because that's going to be different for each game. It could be that it's a 9 out of 10, but the last third of the game gets to be pretty rubbish, in which case, okay, it's going to get penalized that way. But it could also just be, it's a really amazing 10 out of 10 game, but it's like super broken. So we're going to like ding it a couple points, in which case that will tell you more. Maybe I wait to buy it at that point. But if we look at the reviews, we'll pull up a couple of big ones, like full actual reviews, and look at them here in a second. But just in terms of broad strokes to give you an idea. Just my chair. Gaming Bolt gave it a perfect score. Black Myth Wukong delivers breathtaking combat, stellar production quality, and unforgettable boss fights. Its few quirks don't hold it back from being one of the genre's best games in recent memory. Gaming Age sits it at an 8 out of 10. Pretty much delivers on what it promised, a gorgeous world where you get to battle crazy monsters and demons. Would be nice if there was a little more to do between the craziest monsters and demons. But why though, which is apparently a review site. Black Myth Wukong is an incredibly engaging and entertaining action RPG in many ways. While the overarching narrative leaves a lot to be desired and the technical and balance issues can be a hindrance, the game still provides an epic, unforgettable experience. And this is something that will be brought up time and time again. It seems as though there are a lot of performance issues. Even the one and only man, the myth, the legend himself, Jake Baldino, has said as much. Black Myth Wukong is not a Souls-like, and I'm glad. It's a fun and sometimes messy action game that really shoots for the moon. Constant bosses, good pacing, gorgeous. However, I had some technical issues on PC. Haven't seen console version. Be aware. Also, the monkey's hot. The monkey is indeed hot. So, what does all of this tell you? Well, technical issues are one of those things that usually arrive on a spectrum. Some technical issues are annoying, but they're not enough to like actually affect the end experience, right? It's like, for example, I did that play test for Space Marine 2 recently, where I played many hours of that game. But in that version of the game they sent, there were a couple of weird technical issues. For example, if you go into the menus, you can hit a toggle to turn off helmets so that you can see the heads and faces of the Space Marines as you fight through waves and waves of Tyranids. For me, you couldn't turn it back on. You couldn't put the helmet back on unless you restarted like the whole game. I don't know why. It's just you could toggle it off, but you could never toggle it back on again until you rebooted. That is a technical issue. But is that going to affect like a review score? I don't think so. I think if like the rest of the game were a 10 out of 10, I don't think I'm giving it a 7 for that. You know, that on the spectrum of technical problems is pretty low in the level of influence it would have. Other issues though, like crashes, I would say are probably the most problematic. Other than just like think of some games where you just can't progress. Like when I reviewed Alan Wake 2 and the pre-release build had a bug that was pretty rare. It only happened to a couple of people. I think it was me and then a couple of people that were working on like wiki entries for the game ahead of time. They also had it, but basically it was a problem that just locked you out of the end of the game. You just could not progress in the story anymore past that point because something needed to happen for a door to unlock and then you move through, and that just never could trigger for me, so I just couldn't finish the game. They did end up fixing it like right at launch basically, but by that point they were like, yeah, you have to restart the game for it to take effect, and I was like, I can't really do that in 6 hours, play through the whole game again. So it's a separate issue. But that is an example of a very extreme technical problem where you would expect the final score to be dinged. With Black Myth Wukong, it seems as though there is a pretty wide variety of technical problems, including things like crashes and stuff on PC. And to hear it described, I think it only makes sense that we look at a couple, or probably one or two, of these reviews and see what they say with actual gameplay and stuff like that. So if we do this, we're going to max out the bit rates. We're going to crank the dials and see what these reviewers have to say. Will Black Myth ever do a physical? I don't know. I mean, once you get past a certain age, I think it's just the responsible thing to do. Even though it's a little scary, I think everybody should do it. Certainly, I think everybody should. As for a physical version, I think they said in November. Are they doing a physical one in November? I'm not sure. Let's see what this is.
Hey y'all, Mitchell Saltzman here. I'm the reviewer of Black Myth Wukong, and just a quick note about this review. As part of the embargo agreement set for this game, I am unable to show you footage beyond Chapter 2, which presents a bit of a problem because a lot of the technical issues that I have with this game that I specifically call out in this review occurred after Chapter 2. So
You gotta love it. You gotta love it when that just happens to be when all of the technical problems are. Man, I will say it is a little surprising that they were much more locked down with like review codes and access for this game than I would have expected them to. Usually when a studio has something really special on their hands, they want everybody to get their hands on it and talk about it and shout from the rooftops how good it is. But with this, it was like a little strange, and I heard rumbling. So like some of you guys know, at the end of the stream yesterday, I was kind of like, tomorrow's going to be really interesting. Tomorrow's going to be really interesting. And then it was like a big cliffhanger, and I left it off there. I had heard that for some people, the game was just broken. Like they just couldn't do it. I will wait to see later in the day. There are some people who are maybe recognizable in the YouTube space that have the game, but have not posted stuff yet. And I think it's because they just couldn't finish it because it was broken. Now, whether they make a review saying, I wanted to review it, but it's broken and it keeps crashing or whatever, or if they just don't make a video because little insider info, making videos that express negative feelings towards either greatly hyped up games or games specifically in like the Soulsborne genre or Soulsborne adjacent games like this, it is a headache beyond headaches. Like the fan bases around these are pretty vitriolic when you step out of line and maybe point out that there's big problems with something. Which is why there's been many instances where people like that don't really love something about like Elden Ring, they won't make a video expressing that or talk about it because they don't want to end up in an Actman video or something. It's just, I think because of the impassioned fan base, a lot of people just end up, if they have something not nice to say, they just don't say anything at all because that's just frankly easier. So we'll see if those people end up actually making videos or posting videos today, or if they're going to wait till patches come and then do a review in a week or two, or maybe just never cover it at all. But it does seem like there were many rumblings, okay? Many rumblings of technical problems. And to hear that like pretty much every reviewer who touched the game on PC is expressing that is pretty interesting. So let's continue. But I mean, all of this to say, it is never a good sign when there's a set of serious problems with the game and they happen after a certain point, and that just so happens to be the certain point where they don't want you to use any footage at all. It just screams like they're literally trying to hide it and not let you see footage of those problems, which is the same thing we gave like CDPR crap for with Cyberpunk 2077, making it so they could only use B-roll provided for the reviews. And you could talk about the bugs, but you can't show the bugs, so people don't see how bad it is. And it's just a slimy thing to do, you know? It's just a slimy thing to do.
So I'm unable to actually show them. So we're going to do 2 different video reviews this time. This first one will abide by their restrictions and only show footage from the first 2 chapters, but we will also be posting a more complete review with the relevant footage added in on launch day. And with that, on with the review for Black Myth Wukong.
I think that's the best way to do it. Call it out.
I've never been so utterly blown away, yet simultaneously so unbelievably frustrated by a game as I have been with Black Myth Wukong. This is undoubtedly one of the most ambitious and impressive action games I've played. It's stunningly gorgeous, its combat is fantastic, it's incredibly challenging, but always satisfying to overcome, and the setting is refreshingly unique and steeped in rich Chinese culture. Despite all of
we
that,
found our new
it often
podcast
feels like it's barely
song.
holding it all together. I suffered numerous crashes, despite having a top-of-the-line setup with the GeForce RTX 4090. Not to mention the multiple times I fell through the ground and died in the final phase of a boss fight, or the way characters would randomly switch from English to Chinese, or the way the dialogue audio would just drop out altogether and leave me completely in the dark during an important cutscene. It's a rickety roller coaster for sure, and there were definitely spots during the ride where I was not having a great time. But taken as a whole, this is one adventure where the bumps are worth it.
Monkey magic. Man, it's just really unfortunate. I'm excited to see like the Digital Foundry breakdown of some of these, because like this isn't just performance issues, because there's usually two things that are expressed in reviews like this: is it's technical issues or it's like performance issues. Performance just being how steady it can hold to the target frame rate and retain its resolution, blah blah, blah, like that type of thing. But technical issues are when you're like falling through the ground where there's a bug happening. There is some piece of code that's not executing properly. You're supposed to always stay above this plane and something's causing you to fall through it. That's a problem. You got to fix it. And I don't know if I know some people are hopeful that this gets fixed day one, but like with a day one patch, but I think that it sounds like there's a lot of these problems. I'm not sure if it's going to be a quick and easy fix. Brad, thank you for the 3 months. That jiggle though. Jiggle, jiggle, jiggle.
Black Myth Wukong's story is somewhat of a follow-up to the classic novel Journey to the West by Wu Chenggen, a book that I only personally know thanks to very loose adaptations like Dragon Ball and Enslaved Odyssey to the West. That surface-level familiarity didn't help much though, as the interpretation that the developers at Game Science have crafted here is laden with references to characters and events from the novel without doing a great job of bringing you up to speed on who Sun Wukong is or what he encountered on his titular journey. I had to look online to understand who Zhu Bajie was, what his history with Wukong is, and what the significance of certain encounters were, because otherwise I'd have been completely lost at times. You play as the Destined One, a literal monkey who wakes up one morning and decides to
A literal monkey as opposed to a figurative one.
set out on a roughly 40-hour journey to locate the 6 relics of Wukong. While the moment-to-moment storytelling is fairly unremarkable, largely due to a mute protagonist and side characters that aren't given enough screen time to develop, each of the 6 self-contained chapters culminates with a stunningly gorgeous animated vignette that tells a short story about that chapter's main antagonist. Each one is done in a completely different art style, with one drawn to look like a storybook, another using stop-motion animation, and another done in the style of an anime. Every single one of them is beautiful and poignant, and I couldn't help but wish that the main story managed to move me in similar ways.
Apes of Wrath.
My initial read on Wukong was that it was a Souls-like, given the checkpoint system, the stamina bar that governs your actions in combat, and the dodge-heavy fighting style. But
It's so funny that everybody gets that impression, and yet they've had to come out so many times and be like, it's not a Souls-like, it's not, please stop saying that, please. Because everybody thinks that. Like, you look at it, it looks like a Souls-like, but it's just apparently not at all what it is.
But as it turns out, Wukong has more in common with traditional action games, like what you might expect from Bayonetta developer Platinum Games, than it does with anything that From Software has made. Most of the usual Souls-like conventions are missing. There's no penalty for death outside of respawning at the nearest checkpoint, you don't use a shared currency to level up your stats and purchase items or upgrades, and while there is gear and stats to consider, you largely just go and swap out the old equipment with the new, as opposed to making choices as to what kind of weapon or piece of armor you want to hold on to and upgrade. And even though I am a big fan of Souls-likes, ditching those mechanics feels like the right move for the game that Wukong is trying to be. It's far more forgiving, focused on keeping you in the action rather than poring over menus or retracing your steps to regain your lost currency after dying, and Wukong is a better, more distinctive game for it. To be clear though, when I say it's more forgiving, I don't mean that it's any less difficult than a From style game. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that between this and Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, I had more difficulty getting through Wukong's toughest challenges.
I guess Shadow of the Erdtree, I guess, really depends on a few factors. Like, did you get all of the Scadutree fragments? Did you fully level up by the final encounter? Were you using summons? Yeah, all that does matter. But I mean, that's a high bar. Even still, even with all that stuff, it's still a lot to say that this is more difficult.
As I deemed.
but at the same
Smack
time,
that
those
booty.
challenges never felt unfair, and overcoming some of the tougher boss fights was always a satisfying combination of learning their attack patterns, figuring out where I could maximize my punishment windows, and tweaking my loadout in ways that made the best use of my chosen powers.
Oh, I think you can get canceled for referring to this song now. You gotta be careful. You better be careful. Yeah, everybody was kung fu fighting. You gotta be careful, man. You're not allowed to like that song anymore. Wasn't there a story of somebody like in the UK who sang it at a karaoke night or something and then like lost their job? Like it was like a whole thing.
Combat in Black Myth Wukong is simple and elegant, thanks in part to
Let's
some
find
tools
that.
that are
I'm pretty
really
sure
fun to
that
play
was a
around
thing.
with. Success hinges on a delicate balance of Twitch reflex style gameplay mixed with careful resource management that largely revolves around a focus meter, which builds up when you land hits and perfectly dodge enemy attacks. You gain a focus point whenever that meter fills up, which you can then spend in the middle of a light attack combo for a varied combo, or you can just use a heavy attack on its own for a powerful strike that can be charged even further if 2, 3, or even 4 focus points are consumed all at once.
That's cool.
You also have access to a small handful of spells, governed by a mana meter, that are versatile enough to be useful in a wide array of situations. The Immobilize spell, for instance, freezes enemies for a short time, allowing you to get in some quick hits and potentially stagger them to allow for even more free damage. Cloud Step turns you invisible and creates a decoy for your enemies to focus on while you break away, heal up, and then hit your foe with a surprise attack that can crit.
Dude, it's straight up Echo Knights from like D&D. We just had a D&D session last night in the game I'm running for some friends, and there's a subclass of fighter where you can use like Echo Knights, and you project basically an echo kind of like this off into the distance that appears like a black and white version of yourself, and then you can warp between them for like warping around. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool concept. So yeah, just sorry, that's what it immediately makes me think of. Yeah, I tried to quickly Google everybody was kung fu fighting UK something or other. I can't find anything. So maybe I had that in like a dream. Maybe you are allowed to like that song now. Thank God, because it's a good song.
Rock Solid briefly turns you into a statue that will cause an enemy's attack to bounce right off of you, giving you an opportunity for a counterattack. Ring of Fire creates a barrier around you that will initially repel enemies and grant you some health restoration, along with enhancing any stat-altering drinks that you may use while standing inside of it. And finally, there's my personal favorite, a Plug of Many, which lets you make multiple clones of yourself to all gang up on an enemy at once.
How is that not just super broken?
Separate from that, you've also got transformations, which allow you to morph into powerful creatures that you've already bested in battle. What's really cool about these is that they don't cost any mana, they're tied to a very lengthy cooldown instead, and they turn you into a totally different character, complete with an all-new moveset, special moves that use their own focus meter, and more. For
That's
example,
cool.
one of the first bosses that you fight is a wolf with a fiery dual blade that has a lightning-fast dash attack. When you defeat him, you'll gain his transformation and be able to do that very same dash attack to your enemies, and once you build up its focus meter, you'll even be able to do a hugely powerful leaping strike that can ignite foes and deal damage over time to them.
That's just freaking clever, because the devs like have already built the boss and the move set. So why not just give the player access to it as well, you know? Like that's just kind of clever. I like that. That's super cool.
And then finally there are spirit skills, which are earned by defeating certain more powerful versions of enemies and absorbing their essence into your gourd. These are effectively transformations that only last for one attack and are
Infuse
also
my
tied to a
gourd.
fairly lengthy cooldown, but it's great to be able to, for example, use the Wandering White's powerful headbutt attack to get an extra stagger after immobilizing an enemy.
That's
These
just
spirit
cool.
skills can also be leveled up, which makes it so that even the early game spirits never lose their strength as the campaign rolls on. It's an excellent blend of options, especially when mixed with some truly incredible boss fights. And Wukong introduces all of these elements at a thoughtfully measured pace, so I never felt overwhelmed. Make no mistake, the Destined One is extremely powerful. And being in control of him is definitely a heck of a power trip. Even beyond the many powers and abilities he has at his disposal, nothing beats the feeling of just slamming a 50-foot bow staff down onto an enemy's head. But I still had to be smart with how I used my spells due to the fact that mana restoration is actually very difficult. This is where the resource management aspect of combat comes into play. I had to carefully consider what spells were actually worth the mana cost, whether I should save them for a more difficult second phase of a fight, and whether or not I could capitalize on the opportunity if I were to spend the mana in the first place. For instance, even though it's my most powerful spell, I often had to hold off on casting my Pluck of Many spell that duplicates my character since it has an extremely high mana cost. If I cast it at a bad time, the boss could simply wipe out all of my clones with an AoE attack before they even got a chance to get some damage in. Sometimes the adjustment I had to make when I was stuck on a boss was a simple change in how I used my abilities, and the act of coming up with a new strategy and having it pay off was always extremely satisfying. While boss battles are where Wukong is at its best, there's also a highly respectable amount of enemy variety in its regular fights. Level design is of the wide linear variety, usually with a clear main path that leads from checkpoint to checkpoint, but plenty of opportunities to venture off that path to discover optional goodies. The rewards for exploration are great too. I've found rare crafting materials to make new weapons and armor, special enemies that drop a new spirit skill, curio items that I could equip to enhance my build, and treasure chests that might permanently increase my max health, mana, or stamina.
See, that's how you build out a level. Not that I don't like exploring levels and finding like a new mullet like in Jedi Survivor, but stuff that actually affects gameplay can be a really good reward. I would say even better reward than just different 80s inspired haircuts.
All of which made the time that I took to find them well spent. On top of that, there are also several secret boss fights to discover, key items with mysterious uses that I still haven't figured out, and plenty of more reasons to stray from the beaten path and keep an eye constantly scanning the environment. The main one being that Wukong is one of the most gorgeous games I've ever played. Every environment is brimming with detail, from the chipped pieces of bark on the trees in the forest, to the real-time deformation of the snow as the Destined One moves through it while dragging his staff along. Not only that, but the animation is impeccable too, with wonderful touches and flourishes, like the way your character will do a little hop step when locked onto an enemy, then change to strafing around them as opposed to just running straight on while keeping their head turned.
Yeah, there's a lot of attention to detail in the little stuff, and we've been able to see that in all the trailers and stuff for a long time. They've definitely done a very, very good job.
The music and sound design is fantastic as well, with epic drum-thumping battle themes and melodic flutes and chimes adding to the air of wonder and mystery as you explore the unknown. All that said, this game really would have benefited from a map, plain and simple. The lands you explore in Wukong are beautiful, no doubt, but they're far too big and too crammed with secrets to not give you some sort of navigational help, especially the second and third chapters. This, along with the fact that it's aggravatingly hard to tell what obstacles can actually be climbed over and what's an invisible wall, can make exploration quite cumbersome. It's a good thing that the rewards are worth it.
Yeah, that is kind of annoying. It's the same thing that like God of War had that problem with it, because Kratos didn't have a jump. So like you'd get up to a barrier that's waist height, and some of them you can just hop right over. Others, he's like, we have to find another way. It's like, bro, you just jumped over something half the size 5 seconds ago. Why can't you jump over that? You know, it's just, it's just funny.
However, it's hard not to feel like all of Wukong's splendor and detail came at a great cost. I experienced numerous crashes, with one particular heartbreaker happening right after defeating an extremely tough boss that I then had to defeat again. Several others were more minor and would typically happen as I was loading up a new chapter or fast traveling to another level, but they eventually add up to a lot of frustration. In addition to that, several times during important cutscenes, all dialogue, audio, and subtitles would drop out completely, leaving me without any clue as to what was being talked about and no way to rewatch the cutscene. Characters would occasionally switch to speaking Chinese all of a sudden, despite me having the audio set to English. The lip flaps of the English dub often don't even remotely match what's being spoken.
Shout out lip flaps. I think that's the first time I've ever heard the term lip flaps used in a review. So I guess mark that off your bingo card.
Oh, thank me to God. Oh, finally then the 3 bells sang. Disciples come, I hear.
And most of the journal entries you find along the way haven't even been localized yet into English.
How do you not do that yet? What? Bro, they just haven't finished translating journal entries yet? That's ridiculous. Like that one, I don't know how you could defend that. Like it's literally not done. Like it's literally unfinished. That's yeah, that's crazy. That better be done by launch. Otherwise that to me is like ridiculous. Granted, I'm sure the reason that they feel like it's fine is because, let's just be honest, I would guess on the grand scheme of things, the percentage of players that are actually going through and reading all of these is probably pretty low. So they're like, they won't even notice. Still though, literally haven't finished translating the game. Like what?
They haven't even been localized yet into English. The worst, though, was one particular fight in which the boss would plunge me down through the ground during the transition to its final phase, only to have me fall through the world once I regained control of my character. This kept on happening to the point where I thought my game was unavoidably bugged and I wouldn't be able to reach the end. But my insanity of trying the same thing over and over again eventually yielded a different result for no discernible reason. These are the kinds of technical problems that Game Science will hopefully look to address in post-launch patches. And it's not outside the realm of possibility, as even Cyberpunk 2077 was eventually whipped into shape after its own buggy launch. I hope that
it's true, but the point is like that should have never been a problem. Like it's why I understand when some people are confused how like some YouTubers or streamers or something could now look at something like Cyberpunk and say, well, it's actually really, really good. They're like, you were so upset about it when it launched. Yes. And it kind of puts everybody in a tough spot because on the one hand, you want to be honest about the original state, which you can be. The original state of something like Cyberpunk was atrocious and totally unacceptable. But you also have to then be honest about its current state. And its current state is very, very good. In its current state, it's one of the best open world like adventure RPGs probably ever made. Does that forgive the original state? I don't necessarily think so. Does that erase that part of its history? No. But you also have to acknowledge the current state that it's in. But having said that, I think people were totally justified when Cyberpunk launched at being outraged, at refunding the game, at returning it. Like all of those were perfectly justified actions because of the state it was at that time. And so in this case, yes, eventually they could fix up Black Myth Wukong and get it running the way that it should have been running from the beginning, finish translating the menus and journal entries. They can eventually get there, but the point is it should be there on day one. Like it should be there day one. And it's why I do think it's an interesting perspective I've heard portrayed from some people where they say, no, even with Cyberpunk having been fixed, I refuse to buy it because I don't want to give them any sort of money after that disastrous launch. And I do think I can understand that perspective from people where they're like, you can't let them get away with it by just buying it at full price later, you know? And I get what they're saying. But all of that to say, it's kind of, you know, a tangent, but all of that to say, yes, they probably can eventually fix Black Myth Wukong, but it should be fixed day one. Like it shouldn't be a problem to begin with.
that those fixes come swiftly, because while I still wholeheartedly think that the things that Black Myth Wukong does so right are worth dealing with those problems, I would love to be able to recommend it without those caveats.
Verdict.
As Game Science's debut action game, Black Myth Wukong is mostly a great success, despite some major technical black marks and localization issues that are likely to cause some frustrations at launch. Combat is fantastic, thanks to a great balance of careful resource management and lightning-fast switch reaction gameplay that tested my skills as much as Elden Ring ever has, despite it being a more traditional action game than From Software's style. Not only that, but there are a ton of exciting boss battles, a great variety of enemies, and the world they inhabit is an absolute treat for the eyes and ears. Its story has its moments, but relies a bit too much on having prior knowledge of the events of Journey to the West, and it really could have used a map to make its rewarding exploration measure up to the strength of the combat. All said, its strengths more than carry it through, making Black Myth: Wukong a great action game that could be even greater if game science can squash the bugs. For more Black Myth: Wukong,
Yeah. It's making sense now why it's not available on the Series S or Xbox in general. If they're having this many problems on high-end PCs, it really makes me worried about a PlayStation version. Does anybody know who's watching this? Does anybody in chat know if anybody's done PS5 reviews? They didn't give out PS5 codes. Is that true? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That could be bad. That makes me worried. Maybe, because again, like you would think if it were super polished, if these technical problems are just because it's PCs and variable to hardware, blah, 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 whatever. But you would imagine that they are sending out codes for the platform that will make it look and run the best, right? So if they are not sending out PS5 codes and the PC codes are leading to pretty rough times, that's pretty rough. Jacob says, yeah, Push Square says they haven't even gotten their code yet. It's like back with Cyberpunk again, where I asked CDPR for codes. I was talking with one of their employees in an email chain, and they're like, yeah, and what platforms would you like to review the game on? And I sent back the email and I said, oh, I would like to review it on PC, but you know, I'd really like to cover it on, I think I said Xbox at the time, because I had an Xbox One X, and I was like, the consoles will probably be the best platform. It's probably the most polished there. So I'll do a 1X code if you have it. And then if you also have a PC code, great. And it seemed as though every YouTuber that requested a console code first and a PC code second, none of them got review codes for that game, which is a little funny. But yeah, I mean, I'd be worried about that. I'd be worried about that. I was going to pull up another review that I have the link archived. The reason I do the archived links is because once it's archived, they don't get any ad revenue from this, because it's almost like printing out the article. So you can look at this as many times as you want, but Screen Rant isn't getting like paid for it. And the reason I did that is because I feel like this whole review is it's written in my opinion, bad faith. They went into it wanting to tear it apart for being made by a sexist and bigoted development company, and they wanted to hate it and to be upset about it. Even still, they give it a 3 out of 5, and they say combat's fluid, cinematography can be breathtaking at times, great diversity in items and mechanics, but its con is that it's lacking in inclusivity and diversity. And basically they just say that it's because there's not enough women in the cast. Now, in my opinion, this is a game where you are playing as a monkey, fighting bears, tigers, snakes, dragons. It's pretty varied, dare I say, diverse. And like bringing up, it's almost like one of those immediate red flags where you see it brought up, or you see the hit piece that IGN did on it brought up, And yeah, you can see right here, it's an archive of the IGN, how Black Myth Wukong developers' history of sexism is complicating its journey to the West. So they're even bringing it up here. And again, we've looked at that. We talked about that in the Skeptical Look video that we did on the main channel. And I just find the entire hit piece to be woefully lacking in substance. I mean, they go so far as to argue that game science is like a sexist studio. Game science. Let me pull up their website. Because of their logo, and they point to the logo as an example. That's their logo. So in that hit piece, one of the pieces of evidence that they use to say that this is a problematic and sexist company is this logo. And they say it's sexist and problematic because it looks like a spermazoa, which is apparently totally unallowed. I'm like, okay, let's just flip it. Imagine if the logo looked vaguely like fallopian tubes. Would you then be calling for the studio to be boycotted because of that? Like, what does that even mean? Like, what are you talking about? It's such a stretch. It's unbelievable. It's such a stretch. So I just find it absolutely ridiculous. The whole article, they find some examples and some posts on social media from years ago from a couple of the like design directors and stuff, where depending on what you use to translate it, it can be seen as crude or it can just be seen as awkward poetry. We had somebody in chat who was Chinese and was telling us their actual translation from what they were reading on it. And they were like, yeah, I mean, I would see this post as like kind of crude, but I would not consider this to be like a cancelable offense or anything like that means the studio and this game they've spent years making should be canned. Like, it's such a Puritan approach to games journalism. It's frankly ridiculous. And that's why I don't want to encourage it, even indirectly, by going to the actual website and giving them ad revenue. I've met some of the people from Screen Rant, not this reviewer. I don't even know who this reviewer is. Senior staff writer has reviewed. Looks like they do quest guides. Lots of Minecraft and Fortnite stuff. Fallout London. I don't know, man. Expertise is in Baldur's Gate 3, Minecraft, and Elden Ring. Okay. Went to King's College in London. Wow. The King's College? Oh, good heavens. So I'm not going to encourage it because I think that having a Puritan approach to critiquing art is one of the most toxic and potentially destructive things for civilization on the whole. I just don't think you should encourage critiques of art that hold it up to some sort of Puritan standard that nobody would ever hold themselves up to. Nobody would ever withstand that scrutiny. Because they're looking for literally any little bitty thing. And then that's enough for, it's like, okay, well, got to cancel it now. Their logo looks kind of like a sperm. Pack it up. You know, it's such a stretch. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, we'll leave it there. Let's see. Mandreate. I'm sorry, that was painful. Thank you for re-upping your sub on Twitch with Prime. Thank you, my friend. 4 months. Oh, baby. Thank you. Remember how IGN apologized for writing an unverified hit piece on the game? Me neither. Yeah. No, they still reference it in like everything they do. They still reference it. Even this review from Screen Rant references that as a reason to ding the game's final score. It's just, that's why when I say bad faith, like they went into this wanting to ding it. Like they went into it with some outside thing. And like, if you're going to fully disclose it, so be it. Like if I go into a review for, I don't know, I don't even know. If I went into a review for, I don't know, Sonic the Hedgehog Mania 2006, whatever. And I'm like, from the outset, let me be clear, I'm not really into Sonic games. And I've heard from a lot of people that this is a dumpster fire of a game. So let me just get that out of the way up front. Then, okay, you clearly stated your biases, at least as far as you're aware of them. And now we can go into the rest of it. But what drives me crazy is when somebody's trying to present it as like a super level-headed and unbiased review when it clearly is not. Clearly it's not. They went in wanting to find things to dislike about it. They couldn't really find anything other than technical issues, so they just ended up poking at that, and then the lack of diversity in the cast of monkeys, bears, and tigers. So yeah, what does Sonic turn into when he's going really fast? A ball. What are balls? Testicles. Sonic is the most sexist game of all. Why is that sexist? Because it's sort of male. It was right in front of you the whole time, and you didn't see it because you didn't want to see it. Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, enough about balls, I suppose. Oh man. Yeah, don't give Rule 34 any of my ideas. That's already a thing now. We've already established it. Baldur's Gate. Oh God. That's the next one on the chopping block. That's the next one. Oh golly. Okay. So having said all that, it seems like Black Myth Wukong is a really solid game, but it is a solid game that is mired in technical issues and bugs, crashes, and stuff like that. And the fact that they have not sent out a single PlayStation 5 code, that gets me pretty worried. Because typically these studios will send out the codes for the platforms, which will make their game look the best and perform the best. So if the PC version has all of these problems, granted it looks pretty, but if it has all these problems, it gets me real worried about the PlayStation 5 version. Because at the very least, I think it's fair to conclude it's not going to be better than the PC version. It's not going to be better. And if it's not better, it's pretty easy, especially when you hear that there's other technical problems, pretty easy for it to end up being worse, I think. So we'll see. But yeah. GameSpot's review didn't mention technical problems, weirdly enough. Really? GameSpot. Pulling up article. Okay, they say, I mean, where did they land with it at the end of it? 8. Story assumes level design is dull. Do they really not mention anything? Yeah, it ran exceptionally well for me on PC2, compiling shaders at the outset to prevent the dreaded Unreal Engine 5 stutter. Ran exceptionally well. Yeah, some people are saying the reason for the difference and the disparity between Chinese outlets that are reviewing it and American outlets is probably the knowledge of like the cultural differences, the knowledge of the story and everything. And maybe that is the case. Maybe that is what's doing it. But I think it's also it's interesting to see that IGN China gives it a 10 out of 10 and then IGN US gives it an 8 out of 10. Granted, they're just two individual reviewers that could score it differently. And I'm sure there's a bit of pride if you're from China and then a Chinese development company is putting this out. Because they haven't really broken into this type of game before. At least anywhere near as on the global stage as Black Myth has ended up. So maybe they like, there's probably a few reasons. Eric, thank you for the super chat. Star Wars Outlaws has a new short trailer. Luke, can we watch it and see how it is? Thanks for all you do and best wishes to you and your family. Thank you so much, my friend. Yes, we can watch it. I actually, look at that right there. I got it pulled up already. Thank you, my friend. And then Cool Master Manga, thank you for the 10. Always love your takes. May I ask for you to go deep into game journalists? I have said ever since before Gamergate that they are activists under the disguise or under the guise of journalist feelings over facts. Yes. As with all industries, there are, in my opinion, just to preface it, there are some good apples and there's bad apples on any given tree. And in the case of games journalists, I've talked to many of them. I have interacted with many of them. And some you meet and they are the most passionate, the sweetest, kindest, most warm and genuine people you'll ever meet. And they are literally living their dream, getting to cover video games and talk about it. You meet Jake Baldino, he's a G. I mean, he actually is that passionate about video games. He loves what he does, and you just feel it when you're around him, right? I don't know if you'd consider him part of like the games journalist club, but still, like, that's an example of somebody that very much is pure in his intentions and everything. There's other people I've met at some of these events who, when they've had a couple of beers, will straight up tell you, well, I'm not really that into video games, but you know, it's I got a job here a few years ago, and so I'm just, you know, doing my thing, and I'm liking it. It's pretty fine. And so, like, they'll just openly tell you they're not gamers. They just got a job there and end up here. You know, or I've told you the stories about some of the TikTokers that I've met, where the TikTokers are also a wide variety. Some of them are super genuine, very, very passionate. Others will tell you straight up, no, I have like 5-6 different accounts, make gaming content because I like the clicks and the trips, or the trips and clicks, because gaming content does really good views. So I just make gaming content. I don't really play video games myself, but I like going on the trips to Disneyland, and I like the clicks that come from the videos I make on them. And I would say most of these people, you could see them from a mile away. And any one of you guys that came across these guys on your TikTok feed or YouTube Shorts feed or whatever, you'd be able to tell instantaneously that that's what's going on. So there's that. As for some of these people that end up writing, in my opinion, some of these really disingenuous reviews and articles and stuff and hit pieces, I've never encountered those people in person. And I think it's because I don't think they go into these events. They don't really interact with the broader community. And you could infer from that, maybe it's because they're not like real hardcore gamers themselves. They're more the types of people that just got hired here and are going there. Or maybe they just don't want to interact. Like, I don't know. But I've never been at one of these events and met somebody who is like that insufferable. But I have met plenty of people that work in the games industry in terms of coverage and reviews and stuff that privately will be very upfront and just be like, yeah, I'm not really I'm not really that much into gaming. Now, to be fair, most people you'll see on camera that'll go and do videos and go on panels and stuff, those are all real gamers. Because you can't hide. Like, you can't. When you're on a stream or when you're in a video, especially for like hours and hours and hours over the course of many different videos, eventually people will be able to see what you're really about if you actually care about this, you know? Like Jeff is a real gamer. Jeff is actually passionate. We make fun of him because he's like so obsessed with like Kojima and that stuff because it's funny. But like Jeff is a real gamer, and despite many of my frustrations with his like hosting talents, I do think that he's done a lot of good for the industry. On the flip side, mostly the people that are the most toxic are the ones that stay behind the scenes and in the shadows. You'll see them post an article, you'll see them do a review or something, but you're not going to see them hopping on camera usually. And it's because once they do, people can see right through them, you know? And you even saw that with some of the stuff that happened when they rebooted G4, where some of those people ended up, you know, getting more on camera, and it fell apart pretty quickly because it was like, I'm not sure if you're actually like that into it, you know? No, Jeff. So Travis, the thing with Jeff, as far as I can tell, is that Jeff at his core is a businessman. I mean, he's a gamer probably first, and he's a businessman second. But with regard to like the game awards and stuff, he like, that's what he does for a living, is he puts on these events and he makes good money doing it. But I think the coverage of the whole thing with like Hogwarts Legacy is everybody was terrified that if they talked about it, advertisers would pull out and people would freak out, and like people on Twitter would start calling on advertisers to pull out of the event, and they all started freaking out. And so they were just like, okay, we're just going to pretend like it didn't exist. Now, do I think that was the right choice? No, I think it was laughable that the biggest game of the year was like, ironically enough, it's like He Who Shall Not Be Named. They just did not say it. They didn't refer to it. It was laughable. And really ridiculous in my mind. But because like, even if you do think that J.K. Rowling is like a spoiled rich brat who is out of touch and whatever like other descriptions you want to slap onto her, that doesn't mean that you get to just ignore the game's performance or how good the game was, because the game was clearly good enough to be the best-selling game of the year, you know? Is turf the term? I can't keep up with it, honestly. I try to not get on Twitter if I can help it. So I can't keep up with the terminology. But anyway, all of this to say, to wrap this up, and then we'll look at Star Wars. I think that of the people I've met, most of the people you'll see on camera from big games journalist companies and stuff are actual gamers and very passionate and genuine. Like pretty much all of them that I can think of off the top of my head, they're actual gamers. Because and frankly, you can't be on camera for like a 10-year, 20-year period, as long as some of those old school guys have been, without like actually loving it. You can't like pretend that long, you know. As for the people that I've met behind the scenes that aren't on camera, the people that write the articles, the people that might pop on into a guest appearance on a podcast every once in a while, a surprising number of those people will be very transparent and honest that they're just doing this as a job and they're not into gaming that much. And it's pretty ridiculous in my view, because there's so many people that would kill to be in their position, but that's just how it is. So like one time at a preview event, we were talking with someone and she was very, very nice, but she was like, yeah, I don't play games. I'm just here because the company I work for was hiring, and they specifically wanted a young, like early 20s girl, because they thought that that would be good for diversity. It would help with, you know, the diversity of the cast of whatever they were doing. She's like, I don't really play games and I feel really out of place here, but you know, that's why I took the job. And it's just, it's unfortunate. Maybe they do, maybe like she's ended up falling in love with gaming and has become a big gamer or something. But the fact that a lot of these companies are hiring people to try and get, like, I don't even know what, but they're hiring people not based on whether they're gamers or whether they know what they're talking about with games, but just based on their gender or appearance. That's, in my view, really, really toxic and stupid. Weren't you supposed to debate with Alyssa Mercante? I don't know that name. We had talked with what's her name, or Modern Day Debates. And we were going to try and do a debate with Anita Sarkeesian. But that fell apart. Apparently she wanted to do a bunch of stuff, or wanted a bunch of like specific rules and stuff. It basically just fell apart. Modern Day Debate was like trying to get it set up, but it just didn't go anywhere. So I'm not really sure why that happened, and I'm glad it didn't happen. You know, I don't think it would have been that. I don't think it would have been productive at the very least. And then after that, there was another person they pitched. I didn't recognize her at all. I don't think it was Alyssa, whatever you said her name was. I don't think it was that, because this person was like a professor of something and was like one of the most toxic people I've ever seen on social media. Like on Twitter, actively telling people to go and commit Roblox if they disagreed with her. Like just the most toxic person I've ever seen. I don't think it was, I really don't think it was Alyssa Mercante. I don't think it was that person. It was somebody I had never heard of, didn't have any like real credentials, was just like a professor of something that wrote a research paper on how terrible gaming was. And it was just really, really bad. Like, and I went back to James with Modern Day Debate, and I was like, yeah, I don't think this is going to be productive. I think we'll pass, because this is just going to be a dumpster fire. So it ended up not really going anywhere, but yeah. Anyway, I blame work for making me miss the convo. Thanks everyone. This is why I come here. Y'all rock. Yeah. Isn't the community great? It's wonderful. You could debate Sneeko. Oh, Sneeko. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about this. New segment. There we go. Now that I have your attention, let's talk about this. We've gotten a couple of questions about it. For example, Eric gave in a super chat asking about the new Star Wars Outlaws trailer that just dropped. Let's see what this is about. Posted 4 hours ago from IGN. Let's see what we've got. It's only 1:49 long. It says, meet the planets. Akiva. Jungle. Kashara. Savannah planet. I've played in a number of these. I can talk about them momentarily. Kijimi? Oh yeah, the horse races. And Tatooine. That's it. Easy peasy. Now, I've played in a number of these maps. I've never been to Akiva. This is the jungle planet. We didn't get to do any previews with this map or anything. So I've not ever seen that one or played through it, but it definitely seems to be very dense and lush. This is where you can see a lot of that Pandora tech they have coming into play. Toshara, this is the Savannah one. This is probably one of the first planets you go to, apparently. Because when we did our preview session, it's the one that they said, like, this is the first few hours of the game, and we were playing through this. So I think this is one of the very, very first places you go to. It's very large, very open. And yeah, I mean, it's stuff like this, you know, very, very wide open. One of my concerns and things I just haven't seen answered or shown to my satisfaction is how they fill these big maps out, because obviously big open fields are great, but you'd still hope to like have some stuff to do. And sometimes, like, you can see people over here that are talking with each other. Maybe they have a quest to give. Maybe there's something that you could do with them. But in my experience, it's like way over here, there's a speed race or speeder bike race that you can go on that circles this whole field. But it's kind of few and far between. But then again, this is the other thing. We were playing like the opening hours of the game. So most video games that are big open world adventure games, they tend to lock a lot of the side stuff till after the first like tutorial section. So think of like The Witcher 3, White Orchard. It's pretty big. There's a lot there, but most of the game kicks off once you travel to Novigrad and once you get the world opened up to you to go to like Skellige, and there's just so much more that opens up there. So again, it's just important to remember where we were at in terms of the story when we did these preview events. The cities are much denser. The towns are much denser than I was expecting. There's lots of NPCs walking around. The little games are always kind of interesting in these games because they can either be a total or afterthought, or they become a fresh obsession for you. And in this, you can play this card game, and you can even use Nyx to help you. So if you're sitting at the table, Nyx can run under the table, peek up, look at the cards in the hand of the other player, and then run back under the table and tell you, which is just kind of like a fun little thing. And it makes sense because, again, the whole theme of the game is that you're an outlaw, you're a scoundrel, and so you can do that. But it's one of those things where like she's an outlaw and scoundrel, but she's still a good person at her core. You, as far as I'm aware, you're not able to really ever do anything like truly messed up, which for me was kind of disappointing because I was hoping that you could come in and like just be the worst person ever. You know, like you find somebody out and about in a big field like this, you're riding along, maybe there's a man screaming for help, my child, he's up in a tree and there's animals and aliens attacking him, save him please. I think it would be interesting if they're like, oh yeah, no, you can shoot, like walk up and shoot him and then rob him and leave the kid. You know, like if you're going to play as an actual scoundrel, let's play as a scoundrel. But instead it's like, you know, Disney Plus scoundrel, where it's like, you're a bad person, but it's because you're misunderstood. Yes, you did rob from these people, but they were rich anyways. So really, it didn't matter. Meanwhile, the stories are being greenlit by, you know, millionaires and billionaires, and you're like, dry up, dude. You're not fooling anyone. But you know, they've got more pictures of this. The game is freakishly beautiful. It's why that 10-minute clip of gameplay, do they have that here? I don't see it. That 10-minute clip of gameplay from IGN was so jarring to everybody, even those who had seen the game before, because it was so opposite of what we had seen before. What we've seen before when we played the game was stuff like this. Very, very beautiful landscapes and very, very polished. And that gameplay was not either of those things. So it was very, very surprising. But in my experience, this is what the game has to offer. I mean, at this point, we're going to find out in what, a week and a half, 2 weeks, probably, what the actual final version of the game is like. But what I saw was very beautiful. This is Kijimi. This is the snow planet. It's, in my experience, I've only done one mission here. Basically, how they split it up was like 3 hours over here on Tashara. So we played 3 hours there. We played another hour on Kijimi. When we were at Summer Game Fest, I also did the same mission on Kijimi. So I've played through the main mission here twice, as far as I'm aware. And the levels that we went through were pretty narrow. I mean, it's basically everything you can see here. It's like you run over here, go in here. You run up to the hill, there's the little palace, go there. Then you run back there, you steal something from those guys, bring it back up here. It was all fairly small, so I don't know how big Kijimi is, but at least what I've seen is far smaller than something like Tashara or something like that. It's a very, very small place in comparison. The races are probably the most interesting thing that stuck out to me, just because the demoist that was helping me was saying how, again, the theme of being a scoundrel or an outlaw or whatever, there's going to be a lot of things in this world where if you pay attention, you can use it to your advantage to screw over other people elsewhere. So for example, with these races, he said that there's information that can be gathered from various NPCs around that might have information on certain horses or riders that are going to throw it, or certain ones that are going to be selected to win, so everybody can bet and make really good money on it. You know, it sounded really interesting that, like, okay, if you're more attentive around you, you can make more money in these races. I know some people said that Skillup was saying it was tied to like the weight of the horses or something. I know they're not horses, the alien horses. They're basically alien horses. Maybe that's one of the like standards that applies to it. I'm not sure. When I looked back through my gameplay, the fattest horse would sometimes win. Other times it was the lightest horse. Other times it was a mid-weight horse. So it didn't seem like that was the only metric. But it's just a little mini game where you go into these little bars and you can bet money. And it would normally be totally up to chance if you were literally just guessing at it. But if you pay attention to NPCs around and other information, you could potentially even get an inside scoop on which one is most likely to win, and then start just printing money, which is kind of a cool concept. Yeah, this big area, this is probably the widest shot I've seen of Kijimi. But this is kind of a reflection of at least what I've experienced with it. If Tashara, I mean, you remember the huge open fields and stuff. Massive, massive map. Kijimi seems to be very, very tight cities for you to explore. Or a single very tight city for you to explore. And that's about it. Tatooine, as far as I'm aware, nobody's gotten their hands on any of this. Nobody's seen it. And I expect this to also be a very large map to explore, because they even show like Jabba's palace and stuff. So I would imagine that this is a place where it's probably a little bit later in the game that you're going to spend a lot of time there. But Joe Raptor was also saying that they're going to totally open it up as well. Once you get past basically the starter planet on Tashara, you unlock the whatever jump drives for your ship, And then it's totally open. If you want to go to Tatooine, you can go to Tatooine. If you want to go to Kijimi, you can go to Kijimi. But there's going to be certain quests that'll take you in a certain route. But if you want to go anywhere, you can just go anywhere, which is interesting. And then they show some other stuff, you know, old, whatever this is called. I can never remember the name of this thing. There's like an old Lego set of it, but I can never remember the name of it. But whatever this is, you know, there's that. There's all sorts of little quests with it. So I think what's particularly interesting about Star Wars Outlaws is that there's a lot of people, at least from what I can tell, that are very excited for it and are keeping an eye on it, but are being very private about it too. And I think it's because there's been a lot of scandal and negativity and stuff caught up with it, attempted scandals and then other legitimate scandals. And I just think people are exhausted with it. And so people have just started to not say anything and they just keep it quiet. But I'm actually expecting that game to sell surprisingly well. Because again, Star Wars is, people forget, Star Wars is big. Assassin's Creed is probably still bigger in the video game space, but I think that one's gonna be big. People are like, yeah, I'll check it out. And as long as reviews are good, it'll be okay. If it reviews at like 6 out of 10s, yeah, no, then it's screwed. But if it's reviewing in like the 8.5 range, I think it's gonna pop off and sell pretty well. Especially once we hit like the Black Friday season and Christmas and stuff. It might not blow up the first week, but it's gonna pop off during those sales and stuff. Because even the people that are like, it looks fine, if it goes on sale, because let's be honest, it's Ubisoft, it's probably going 50% off Black Friday. A lot of those people are gonna buy it. A lot of those people will still buy it. Reviews will be fixed. Oh damn it, I need that Dana White clip. Hold on. You say that they're fixed?
That's fucking illegal.
Oh man. Oh, Dana. Yeah. No, it's why it's always so funny when people throw it out. It's like, you realize what you're accusing them of is like very serious. And if you have evidence of it, like class action lawsuits, we're making millions. We're making millions. Yeah, Dana White's a very weird and funny person. Very weird and funny. Talking about weird and funny, you guys want to see something really weird? Yeah, you might not have heard of this. New segment. You want to see something very, very unique? Let me show it to you. You guys remember Cuphead? How could you not? How could you not? Cuphead was one of the most unique games like ever. I mean, it's just so visually stunning and unique. And thank you everybody for the super chats. I'll read those in just a second. I got distracted. But that art style, the hand-drawn animation, you know, reminiscent of the 20s and 30s animations. I forget the name of the studio that was known for it, but just beautiful, beautiful animation. Well, there's another studio that's been taking a crack at a similar art style, but for a first-person shooter. You heard that right. The game just got a brand new title. It's called Mouse PI for Hire. And this is the brand new footage. Pretty good, huh? Pretty crazy, huh? This is I love it. I love it. You are right. This was announced a while back. It was. They've since renamed it and they've dropped this. They say that it's going to allegedly be at Gamescom, I believe. So that's going to be a thing. It is slated for next year. For release next year. And oh, that's weird. My headset just rebooted. The battery's still good. That's odd. Anyway, it's slated for next year. They still haven't even updated the title on their Steam page, but this is some of the other footage they've dropped. And it just looks to be one of the most unique first-person shooters probably ever made. It's just outrageous. And I love this kind of thing. Like, this is one of those games, and let me just preface this by saying not everybody should or can do this. But when there's a game that I think really deserves to be encouraged and I want to see more of it, I'll sometimes buy multiple copies as somebody in a very privileged position that makes good money because I get to live my dream thanks to you guys. I'll buy games that I think I should vote with my wallet for multiple times and give copies away to like friends or, gift it on Steam to fans or whoever. Like, it's just something I've done before when I really, really like a game. I've bought, I don't even know how many copies of The Witcher 3 or of The Forgotten City and things like that. Like it's just how many just me, I've bought a Switch version of The Witcher 3, Xbox One. I bought it on the PS4, of course, Steam. I've bought it through GOG. I have it on my personal Steam account and also all of the DLC and stuff as well. I have it on, I think I actually got it on Stadia too when I was experimenting with Stadia. I'm like the one person that bought it on Stadia. So I think I got it on Stadia, and then I've bought copies for like, I think a couple of my siblings, a couple of my friends. I've done a couple giveaways of it to people who reached out and were like, I really want to play it, but I can't afford it. So I don't know, maybe like a dozen. Granted, a lot of those are probably on sale. I mean, it's not like I'm paying $60 every single time. Sometimes it's like it's on sale for $5 or something. But still, I'll vote with my wallet if I think a game really deserves it because I can afford to do it and because it also allows other people to play the game that might not have been able to play it. So I'll do that. But this is one of those games where I could see doing it as long as it ends up not being like garbage somehow and it's pretty rude. As long as it ends up being pretty good, I could see doing that because this is such a unique concept and I'm sure it's so freakishly expensive to make just with all the hand-drawn stuff that has to be done. I want to see more games like this. I want to see big studios helping produce things like this or publishing it because it's this kind of creativity that I think the industry is so lacking right now. It feels like everything is just sequels and then spin-offs or remasters and remakes. It just doesn't feel like there's a lot of creativity at the end of the day with a lot of the games that have come out this generation. And so it would be really, really nice to get more of these wacky new IP games that are just bizarre, just bizarre. That's what I want to see. Yeah. Wait till oh, God forbid we hear that they've converted this into a live service 5v5 hero shooter. You all play hero shooters, don't you? Don't you? Wishlisted. Done. So anyway, go wishlist that so you get notified when it goes on sale and when it's getting shown off. I'm guessing we don't hear anything about it till next summer. That would be a good like Game Pass get. I could totally see that. That could be good. Neo Berlin 2087. You guys are saying this is good? By Elysium Game Studio. Who is that? That sounds familiar. Is that a new studio or is that a previously established team? I don't recognize them. Well, I recognize the name. They did Shadow of Conspiracy Section 2. At least they're working on it. Okay, I don't know what that is. I'll pull this up just a second. Let me catch up on this real quick. Yeah, JKS Guy Code. Yes, I will check out Neo Berlin here. I got it pulled up. Not pulled it. Pulled up. Mike Dememe, thank you for the 2. Hey Luke, I got Ubisoft Plus. I'm gonna try Outlaws on my Ally. Honestly, not a bad way to do it. Just make sure to remember to cancel your membership if you finish the game and don't want to play any of the others, because that's how they get you. You just forget to cancel it. But yeah, thank you for that. And then ooh, happy Friday. Thank you, Iolaire, for subbing over on Twitch. 3 months in a row. Booyah, my friend. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Hero shooter featuring Mickey Mouse and Goofy. Dude, I need, like, you know how Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, now he's just like, it's his goal to just make everything with Disney so milquetoast and plain and boring. Like, it's just insufferably corporate, where you can tell he just has like a spreadsheet up of all of the Disney Plus viewership numbers, and that's all he looks at to decide what he's going to do. But it's just the cringiest stuff ever. And with this, I think, you know, it's driving me crazy that they've squandered so much talent and possibility. But maybe when he leaves finally for good, I hope they get a new CEO in there that's just a creative, like, madman who will just greenlight the most bizarre projects, because that's what they need. They need something crazy. They need a visionary again. They got to stop with these corporate bigwigs that are so freakishly out of touch. They just have no chance of ever doing anything that helps the little guy. Like, they announced a $60 billion series of expansions to their parks, and it's all like the most brain dead, uninteresting stuff. Like, literally nothing new, but it's all because they're freaking out over Epic Universe. It's pathetic, honestly. It's pathetic. That's why you couldn't pay me to own Disney stock. Couldn't pay me to do it. I don't even know if, well, it's gotta be. What's the market cap of Disney? Then we'll look at that. Disney. It's been a good couple days. My portfolios went up like 12 to 13% yesterday alone. It was a good day. It was a good day. Oh yeah, in case you also missed this, this was insane. I'll tell you about this. Disney wants wrongful death suit thrown out because the widower bought an Epcot ticket and had Disney Plus. The full description of this is basically somebody died. Yeah, a man is suing Walt Disney Parks for the wrongful death of his wife. And what they're trying to do is they are trying to get the case dismissed because this guy signed up for a Disney Plus membership. And in the Disney Plus membership, you sign an agreement for mediation. And all that means is if you have a problem with the company, you have to go to mediation before you can sue them. So they're saying you guys have to dismiss this court case because he signed up for Disney Plus a couple years ago. And therefore, any problems he has with Disney, he has to go through mediation before he can sue us. Which is insane. And what's even more insane is that it might actually work. In October of 2023, Kanakporn Tangswan, her husband Jeffrey Piccolo, and Piccolo's mother dined at Raglan Road Irish Pub in Disney Springs, which is part of the Disney World Resort in Florida. They chose to eat at the restaurant, the lawsuit states, because they believed it would have proper safeguards against serving dairy and nuts to Tang Swan due to her allergies. The waiter guaranteed the couple that the certain foods could be made allergen-free, which the two confirmed several more times, according to the lawsuit. She also ordered a vegan fritter, scallops and onion rings, and a vegan shepherd's pie. Although some of the food delivered lacked allergen-free flags. The waiter again assured them it was allergen-free, but after dinner, Tang Swan, 42, went shopping in the Disney Springs area and began suffering from a severe acute allergic reaction, according to the lawsuit. They administered an EpiPen, but they died of anaphylaxis due to elevated levels of dairy and nuts in her system. And so they sued Disney for this because the waiter and the kitchen staff screwed up and served her all these allergens despite saying they wouldn't. And they're trying to get the case thrown out because they had a Disney Plus membership. So, just before you consider dying of an allergic reaction at Disney World, just maybe cancel your Disney Plus membership. Just get ahead of it. Yeah, it's literally something out of a South Park episode. Yeah, it's I don't know if it'll hold up in court. I saw a couple videos from lawyers that were talking about it, and they were like, maybe it doesn't. It's kind of tough to say right now. But there's a chance it holds up. The big thing is whether you can argue that Disney Plus is just Disney and therefore Disney Parks is Disney. So it's all the same thing. But still, it's hilariously ridiculous that that's the defense. But anyway, here we are. Let's check out Neo Berlin. No, this is apparently brand new. It just dropped.
I know you wanted me to use this channel only in emergencies, but I can hear them again. They're coming closer.
She's here.
Immediate Until Dawn vibes. You know, graphically impressive, Unreal Engine at its finest, I'm guessing. But it's got that Unreal Engine, like, Until Dawn vibe, where they just do ultra close-ups on everybody's face. Ultra close-ups, because they're like, look at how good the skin looks, but then they kind of forget that it's sort of uncomfortable to have that many close-ups on somebody.
She's somewhere in this sector.
But I had to discover what lay beyond. I had to see it with my own eyes. Who are you?
I'm here to help you. My name is Nolan. I'm a special investigator. I work with your father.
Help me.
We gotta go now.
I never asked for your help. Why are you risking everything for me?
I'm not gonna let them hurt you, Natalie. This city needs someone like you.
I never asked for any of this.
We'll find a way.
I hope you're right.
I am doing whatever is necessary to keep you safe.
So my immediate thoughts is that this reminds me of something that I remember saying like a year ago when they did the first like big demo of Unreal Engine 5. And yeah, Unreal Engine, what'd I tell you? And the reason what I said at the time was just get ready, because later this generation, Unreal Engine is making it so easy to make games that look graphically really, really stunning. You're going to start to see a lot of games that are visually very impressive, And you cannot use that to interpret quality of the actual game itself anymore. And it's just simply because, like, 5, 6, 7 years ago, if a game were graphically top of the industry, you know, stunning graphics, you could then infer from that and conclude from that, rather, that means it's a world-class studio. If they have world-class graphics or top-of-the-line graphics, that requires top-of-the-line talent, tech, software teams, all of that. It's just design an engine that's able to do that. But Unreal Engine 5 kind of takes that out of the equation, because anybody can make a game that looks ridiculously good. And as a result, you won't be able to use that as sort of a heuristic of determining whether something is going to be really high quality or not. You have to look at other things. And for one, I mean, I see some people in chat referring to like asset flips and stuff. My immediate impression, for one, is that I get the vibe a lot of these shots are very much over processed, and that to me is just it's a potential concern, because usually over processed post-processing effects, like extreme chromatic aberration. I can't even think of the last time I saw a game with this severe chromatic aberration where you weren't in like a flashback sequence or stuff. And it's all over this trailer. Just like every post-processing effect, they've cranked it to the max. There's other little bitty things with like the lip syncing that is just slightly off. It might just be uncanny valley, so that could be part of it. But there's just something a little off with it. Just something a little bit off with it. And it might be that I just have no idea what they're even implying the story's about, but it seems like they have these shooting systems which look fine, but even then, just the sheer amount of post-processing makes it really hard to decipher much of anything about the game, because everything is over-processed. So this is one of those games I certainly would not pre-order, considering it's a brand new studio as well, but I would keep an eye on it. And if they eventually drop like a 10-minute gameplay trailer or something, that will tell you a lot more about what they're doing here. Because it seems interesting. It seems like at the very least they've got the graphics down and they've got some high quality animations and stuff. But that does not a great game make exclusively. Most of this just looks like a pretty capable team working in Unreal Engine 5, but that does not necessarily mean like world-class quality. So I would be cautiously optimistic, keep an eye on it, but I wouldn't go and pre-order until we know a lot more. And there's just other things like the direction of some of these cutscenes that's just odd. Like, why is she just staring off into the ether? You know, like there's just weird directorial things that make it just feel a little awkward. But that again could just be the way the trailer's edited. So you never know. You never know. We'll keep an eye on it. I wish them the best. They say story and gameplay trailers, that's just the same thing. Oh, this is the 2023 version. I mean, the new trailer, you can tell they've added some new bells and whistles and stuff. I do remember this now that I see it. So they've definitely added some new bells and whistles. I think the new version looks better. They've definitely improved some stuff, but I still am not totally sure what the game is even about. I mean, yeah, you look at just like the hair and stuff, what they've done with the beard, they've made a lot of improvements there. So it's getting better. That's at least promising. But definitely need to see like an extended look or something. Okay. They aren't stiff. It's just Botox. It's just Botox. That's what I tell everyone when they're like, what's wrong with your face? I'm like, it's just Botox. What is this? Toyo Securities analyst Hideki Yasuda says Nintendo's next-gen console, presumably, would come in the first half of next year. GamesIndustry.biz previously said it wouldn't come this fiscal year. This means launch will be sometime between April and June. Daniel said, I've heard the delays is because it's taking a lot of time to combine all the tracks and DLC into a single Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Ultra Extreme Z package. Oh, man. Oh, man. Hideki Yasuda of Ace Research Institute, quote, performance and games won't decide the success of PS5. If the color of the PS5 hardware is white, the sales may be negatively affected. Certainly an interesting take. How on earth do you conclude performance in games won't decide the success of PS5? That's insane. But he also says Nintendo's next-gen hardware would be $499 or cheaper. Dude, okay, real quick question in the chat. Let's do a poll. I'm going to do a poll. Okay, we're going to do a straw poll. Hold on, let me pull this up. Straw poll. Okay. Okay, the next gen Nintendo console, let's just say the Switch 2, okay? For simplicity, we'll just say Switch 2. If the Switch 2 is $499, will you buy within the first 6 months? Yes. And this is assuming, by the way, everybody, this is assuming they have like a new Mario Kart, they have Smash Bros. Day one, they maybe have a new Mario. So we're just gonna assume they have games, okay? Because obviously if they don't, there's no reason to buy it. But if they do have games, where is this at? And yes, no. And I'll say around a year after launch. And no, we'll just keep it yes, no. We'll just do yes, no. I'm going to keep it super, super simple. Super, super simple. Okay. Okay. Because I know if I put extra options, people are going to be like, well, actually, if they did this game, I appreciate the nuance, but I need to know. I need to just know yes or no. Because there's apparently some analysts that are suggesting it could be above that point. So while you guys are voting on that, let me also make one on if the Switch 2 is, let's say, $299 again, would you buy, I can't type, in the first 6 months? And then yes, no. And this is the second poll, okay? This is for $299. At $499, 85% of you are saying no. Now, granted, my audience is not very heavy in Nintendo, okay? So I want to be clear about that. But for $299, I'd go for it. Results. That's much more. That's much better. That's much better than that. It just goes to show you, like, again, we see all of these like executives that have this general approach of like, it's not that big of a deal. We looked at the Don Matrick video about the Xbox One, where you could tell their approach was it's only $100 more than the PlayStation 4. It's only $100 more. But that was enough basically to screw over the Xbox One permanently. And then that affected the series consoles and everything. Like that one choice had catastrophic implications, all just because the executives were so out of touch, they didn't think it was that big of a deal. Because for them, $100 really wasn't that big of a deal. They're like, my mortgage is $35,000 a month. $100 is nothing. But to a human being that is not living in a mansion with 4 elevators, it is a big deal. And you can see, I mean, a $200 spread That's pretty significant. I mean, you are opening yourself up a ton if you have that. And granted, my audience is not very heavily focused on Nintendo, but if this were what like my audience is saying for Nintendo's devoted audience, it's probably, even more clear. There's probably closer to like 70, 80, 90% of people who are saying yes at that price point. If you go to $499, I think you're going to have a real tough time selling. Because you got to remember, it's $299 for the console. Then you want another set of controllers. That's another $70. You're up to $370. You want a couple games, $60, $70 a pop. I think 70 is their new main price. So at that point, 410, 510. Like we're over 500 just with getting a couple of games and a new controller. You're already over 500. If you go here, you're going to be spending close to $1,000 just to get going, like doesn't work so well. Cody said yes on both. $499 depending on what it can do and all that. Backwards compatibility. I'm not a big Nintendo. Can't talk. I'm not a big Nintendo guy, but partner loves them, and that would make it worth it. Yeah, and I also think like Nintendo stuff, especially when it first comes out, they're great party devices. Like it's great to get everybody over and start playing like the latest Smash Bros. or like, have you guys ever played Mario Kart? Have any of you guys ever played Mario Kart? It's where I'm just going to explain this to somebody out there because somebody out there has not heard of this, okay? Well, I'm just going to look at Mario Kart. Okay. Mario Kart. It's just all like TikToks. God. I just need footage of a Mario Kart race. So all Mario Kart is basically you get started at the start line, right? Okay, so it's like race is about to begin. And then it counts down. 3, 2, 1, go. And when it goes, everybody cracks open their beer, okay? And the only rule is you cannot drink and drive. It's a good rule to have. So anytime you take a drink, you have to set the controller down and drink. And you cannot cross the final finish line and end your race until your beer is gone. Make sense? So what you end up doing is some people, they have different strategies. Some people, they'll just, it's go, they chug the beer, and then they start racing, ready to go. Other people, they'll just drink exactly like when they get hit with a shell or when they go off the side of the track, or they'll go off a jump, set it down, chug, 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 and then get back into it. There's all sorts of different strategies. My little suggestion is to do what my buddy Caleb does. What he does is he just shotguns that mother, and then he's in last place at the start of the race, which the game tends to be very forgiving to last place racers. Like it tends to be very, very forgiving. It'll give you bullet bills, it'll give you blue shells, it'll give you tons of mushrooms. Like it's not totally fair and random when you're picking up boxes or anything. So or items. So I would just chug it and then race and go crazy, because especially a lot of people, they'll be slower on the chug, and by the time they reach the last lap, they realize I still have half my beer left. And then like right there when they're floating, they have to set it down and chug, 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 and then try to get back in the swing of things, and it just doesn't really work. So that's my recommendation. That's the meta. Okay. Now, we also learned something. I learned this because I was being a little bougie, okay? Everybody else in our little party group when we were playing this, they tried to drink Natty Light. And if you don't know Natty Light, it's the lightest, basically water beer ever. Okay. It's not something you drink if you actually want to like feel the booze. It's something you want to drink if you're at a college party and you're playing like Flip Cup and you're going to be drinking a lot more, right? I didn't want to drink Natty Light because I don't like Natty Light. Nobody likes Natty Light. So what I did is I said, no, guys. I'm going to play Mario Kart with a Guinness. Don't do that. Do not, for the love of God, drink and shotgun a Guinness when trying to play Mario Kart. It's going to go badly. It's like eating a loaf of bread every time you chug one of those. You will be so full and feel so gross so quickly. I did it for one race and I was already like, okay, oh, Nelly, okay. And then all of a sudden, you know, we tried to do another race and I got about halfway through that can because it was also like a tall boy. Like halfway through the can of Guinness and I was like, I'm going to explode. I have to stop. I cannot do this. It was too much. But that is a very, very good time. Jacob says, oh yeah, I did that with some friends with IPAs. It was like eating a birthday cake. Yeah. The beer selection matters, okay? The beer selection matters. And it has to be a beer because if you do hard liquor or something, if you do like a margarita or whatever, you're gonna like be dangerously effed up because like a beer is only like 5%, whereas, you know, margarita is gonna be a lot more. So the drink selection matters. I think you could do maybe like twisted tea, maybe that could work, or maybe what's those other like those like White Claws probably work if you're one of those people. I don't, but like you cannot do a Guinness. It's a bad time. Just don't even bother trying. It's terrible. So all of that to say, that's what you can look forward to when Nintendo drops their next generation console early next year, is playing drinking games on a children's console. It's going to be a good time. What's an IPA? It's an Indian Pale Ale. And in my opinion, they taste like licking the underside of a bicycle, like tire. Not for me. But to a lot of other people, they do not like the taste of Guinness, which of course is heresy, but I'll allow it. There is another one made by a local brewery, and it's called Sad Panda. And Sad Panda is made by Horse and Dragon Brewing. I don't know if you can get this outside of Colorado, honestly, because it's like brewed by a company in Fort Collins. Yeah. Brewed by somebody in Fort Collins. But it is a coffee stout. And it's damn good. Has anybody in chat ever tried this? Has anybody in chat ever gotten to try a Sad Panda? It's good. It's real good. Next time you're at the bar, see if they have Sad Panda. Very good. It's a coffee stout. It's like a little bit creamy. It's very dark. Oh, it's real good. It's real good. Do recommend it. There's another brewery here in Fort Collins called like Zwei. And Zwei has a really, really good one as well. Yeah, Zwei. They have one that is not the Espresso Love, though this one is good. They have one that's like a graham cracker inspired beer that's very, very good. Blanche Dubois. I don't know, maybe they don't have it anymore. But they had one that was like graham cracker that actually tasted like you were eating a graham cracker, and it was also like, you know, 13%. It was awesome. It was awesome. So anyway, enough about beer. Nobody likes IPAs, but plenty of people think they like IPAs. It's like the acquired taste thing where they're like, this tastes like trash, but I'm going to keep drinking it because eventually I might like it. It's like, life's too short for that, man. Just find what you like and drink that. Oreo beer. Oh yeah. Bit off topic. Have you seen the new Until Dawn comparison trailer? Yeah, I guess we could look at that. That's a good idea. We could do that. Togirl, thank you also for the super chat. Which game would I compare Desert or Crimson Desert to? That's exactly the point that makes it so fascinating, is that it doesn't really compare to anything. It's really, really impressive, but it's so impressive everybody's like, it's too good to be true. It looks too good. It looks like it's got Red Dead stuff. It's got freaking like Tears of the Kingdom stuff. It has Kingdom Come Deliverance stuff. Like there's so many little bitty tidbits of so many different games in those trailers. It looks too good to be true. So a lot of people are just cautiously optimistic. But having said that, I think it's also really promising that they're going to be at Gamescom and the game will be playable. So they're not hiding away, keeping it away from people. They're totally opening it up. And that's exactly what you would hope to see. So I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic. I hope that they can figure it out. Let's do this, and then I want to look back at the Ouya. You guys remember the Ouya? No? Exactly. Let's do this. So shout out to hold on, who said I want to give them credit? Oh, it's Andrew Wheeler. I'll give you credit for that. Christian, real quick. Christian, thank you for 19 months. Do you think Space Marine 2 could expand past 3 planets if people really enjoy PvE? I would love for orcs to return. I think they could do it, and I would not be surprised if they're already working on that, because I think they know that they have something really, really awesome on their hands, and I think they're spending a lot of time working on it. Who knows? There might be orcs in the story, like in the main story, for all we know. They very well could be, and they just have kept it quiet and hidden. We just don't know yet. But I think they absolutely could add that. I mean, I'd pay $20 for an expansion that brought orcs to the game. And then if they're like, yeah, Chaos Demons are coming too, another $20 expansion. Like, that's something where I think that that's actually a valuable proposition. I'd be down to see that. But then again, I'm also a Warhammer fan, so I'm a little biased. Blake Rogers, also thank you for the 5. Hey, Luke, have you been keeping up with Skyblivion at all? Not really. I looked it up after Fallout London popped off because I wanted to see how that was doing. But yeah, we'll see. I think it has a lot of eyes on it now that Fallout London has actually come out. People are like, okay, this one could do it. This could be the next one, you know. So I need to dig into it. But I mean, now that Elder Scrolls 6 is in the works, I think they need to kick it into overdrive, because I think the closer they get to Elder Scrolls 6, the less likely Bethesda is to play nice. So I would really, really hope that they are able to get it across the finish line, because I think like lawyers and stuff are going to come out and start to be sassy if the lawyers for ZeniMax and Bethesda start to think that could take attention away from Elder Scrolls 6. So, yeah. Always fresh. I backed the Ouya. Did you ever get one? I wonder how much they're going for. I wonder if you can even buy one anymore. I wonder if you can. That'd be interesting. Pewter, thank you for also subbing with Prime over on Twitch. 4 months. Ooh, baby. Thank you, my friend. They've got a decade or two to decide. Yeah, dude, for real. For real. Okay, let's see this. Shout out to Andrew Wheeler. I guess I should do this. News segment. Shout out to Andrew Wheeler for this suggestion for the video. Have I seen the Until Dawn comparison trailer? I have not. This is that very trailer. Little backstory. I love Until Dawn. This was one of the very first games that I played. Like when I got a PS4 for the first time, I was playing with some friends. We had just like graduated high school, because this is like a 2015 game. I graduated high school in early 2015. So like it was one of those very first games that I poured a lot of time into, and I just fell in love with it in a lot of ways. I'll put the camera here. This is the original and rebuilt. Oh God, I'm just breaking this every which way. But you can see like they've made some serious graphical improvements. My question, as somebody who is very biased towards the original, because I've played a lot of it, is that clearly there are some artistic changes as well. You see revised cinematography and production design. So there are big changes that have been made, not just to like the quality of the models and like the candle flame actually looks like a candle flame now. There's been big improvements to all of that, but my question is whether it's retained the same vibe and tone, because you'll see in a lot of these like side-by-side comparisons, there are full-on like color changes, color shifts that have happened, where a shot may have in the original been extra dark and kind of gray. Now it's lighter and it's more blue, or another original blue or another shot originally was very blue and now it's very warm. You see that? Like there are artistic changes that have also happened because color temperature does matter. In fact, even in this studio, I've experimented a lot with color temperatures over the years, trying for warmer colors. If you go back to like early 2022 videos I made on Elden Ring, you'll see that the colors are all super, super warm. And it's because I experimented with that. I thought maybe that would make videos seem more cozy. And it didn't actually end up doing a whole lot of that. It just didn't achieve that end. So I shifted it around. And all of these color temperature things, you might not consciously be aware of how it makes you feel, but it does make a difference. When you see warm colors, people tend to feel safer. The blue and gray colors that you see in the original shot is inherently unsettling, which is why so many filmmakers will use those color palettes in their stuff. It's why, like, if you look at any clip from a Tim Burton movie, except for like Edward Scissorhands, when it's meant to be directly like contrasted between the darkness of like Edward Scissorhands and his story and then the vividity of the neighborhood he's in, sometimes there it's a very active choice. But if you look at like, I don't know, something like Corpse Bride, maybe I can do this. I can't play a clip of it, but I can show like a little snippet. This is like a trailer that has it for the 2005 movie. But you notice all of the grays and the blues, it's very, very flat and it's very cold. But that's because it's meant to establish that tone. And then once he goes to the kind of underworld, you start to get colors popping because it's showing that actually somehow the dead are more alive than the alive themselves. You know, it's all part of the sort of meta narrative that they have within the story. But all of these color palettes tell a story and help to communicate a feeling to the audience. And that's my only thing with what I'm seeing here, is that they've made changes, not just functionally with how they've blocked some scenes, with how they've arranged the camera shots and stuff, but they've also made changes to color tone, to the vibe and the artistic direction of it. And it could make it better, but it could also just make it more generic, where it's just, well, this looks better. Yeah, I'd say if you look at the two shots side by side, one is technically better, but art is not always about what's technically best. You know, sometimes it's more about the intentional decision to do one thing over the other. But having said that, you can see it's reworked. This is the original shot. The updated version, he can actually kind of jog properly. There's new motion capture attached to it as well. The original, and then this is another great example. The really dark, cold lighting that's just, it establishes a tone and a vibe, and then they go here and it's very warm. Technically speaking, this is more accurate, but this I would say is more artistically accurate. Now, again, I'm biased. I really like the original. I've played a lot of the original, so I'm all too familiar with what the original looks like. And as a result, I'm probably going to pick that out of the lineup most times. And I want to be clear about that bias here. But part of the reason I like the way they did it in the original is that it all worked with the original art direction. It was very, very fluid with that. But you can see they have new music, new audio, new particle effects, all sorts of stuff. And honestly, when you're actually playing the game, in the moment-to-moment gameplay, it very well could be that the enhanced version is just better. It very well could be that you don't notice any of that stuff. All of these little things I'm pointing at, you just kind of forget about, and it's not a big deal at all. You know, that's very, very possible. But as somebody that really loves the art direction of the original, I notice these things. So I'm going to point them out because it is overhauled. It is improved. They have more lights going on. The fidelity is much higher. The hair looks way better. All of that is absolutely true. Here you can actually see his face a little bit better. My only point is a lot of those decisions that were made in the original were made not just because of the technical restrictions of the time running on a PS4, but also because using those restrictions and fitting within them, they could make choices that also fit with the tone and the vibe they were trying to go with, which was this like campy B-movie horror film and like choose your own adventure game. And I think it's great, but like you just look at this comparison here of the same shot, the same moment and time in the game, and there is clearly a different choice that's been made. One is at nighttime, one the sun is setting. I get the impression the early hours of the game are all going to be at dusk, and then they're going to lead into nighttime. And they probably chose to do that because dusk is more comforting. They want to disarm the player, get them comfortable, just like the characters would be, and then make it unsettling once you've settled into that false sense of comfort. That is a totally fair creative decision to be made, and I'm excited to see how it plays out. But at the very least, I want to establish that it's a choice. This isn't just that they mindlessly went through and like did this and did that. Like they've made some choices here very actively, and I'm optimistic that it works out because I love that original game a lot.
This in order to move forward.
Who are we speaking to? Hannah? Is that you? Oh God!
You see, no one can change what happened last year.
Just because he's class prez doesn't mean he belongs to everyone. Mike is my man.
Hey, I'm not anybody's man.
Dude, it's so campy. Oh God. It's so campy. But that's what makes it fun and outrageous, is that it is just unapologetically campy. And I know some people didn't like The Quarry because of that. It was very campy. That's part of what I liked about it. I was like, yeah, it's not taking itself very seriously. And I kind of find that refreshing. You know, I kind of find that refreshing, as opposed to every game trying to have like a deep and gritty story. See, this game has a story. Yeah, there's some plot holes. There's some stuff you can poke holes in, but honestly, it's still a good time. And honestly, I'm just glad that I could finally bring up Corpse Bride in a stream clip because I love the Corpse Bride desperately. I love this film. I love it. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's great. Okay. I'm not anybody's man. Exactly. Sure ain't. Okay, let's talk about this now. Sofa Sith Lord, by the way, thank you for becoming a member. Welcome. Appreciate you. That's fantastic. And let's see, Fleekai or Flecky 11, thank you for subbing with Prime over on Twitch. Thank you. Yeah, Katie Cat, I own a copy of Corpse Bride. Yeah, dude, it's an awesome movie. It's awesome. I think, do I have it down here? Maybe. Maybe it's not down here. I thought. No. That's not down here. I do have some Blu-rays of movies I really, really like, because the quality on Blu-ray copies is way better than the streamed version crap. But I don't think I have the Corpse Bride down here. Must be upstairs. So, anyway, let's transition to this. My old animation tutor worked on Corpse Bride. Oh, really? Oh, that's awesome. I'm jelly. Hold on. I'm going to look up on eBay. I want to see if I can find an Ouya. Dude. You can get them for $6. Rare limited edition bronze Kickstarter Ouya. Somebody's using a $150 version. Honestly, the only reason I'd want one of these is to put it in the background as a little piece of gaming history. Just as a collector. Factory sealed still. But there's apparently a lot of these out there. $29, $13. That's crazy. So if you don't know what the Ouya is, or was rather, the Ouya was supposed to be a revolutionary device. A revolution. They had a Kickstarter that was last updated in June of 2013. They raised $8.5 million. $8.5 million. And the promise was basically that they wanted, is the website even still up? That's interesting. Nope, they were bought out by Razer. And it goes to a support page for a different device. It's that broken. That's hilarious. But they say there's something about a big HD TV. Now, this is pre-4K, so it's just HD. Big HD TV and digital surround sound that fills up the living room. Shooters, platforms, sports games, arcade classics, and experimental indie games just feel bigger on a TV screen. Yeah, I mean, they're literally on a big screen. It's how most of us grew up gaming, but maybe people are missing out. We get it. Smartphones and tablets are getting all the new titles. Dude, it's so 2012, 2013. Because again, this was the time where every big studio thought and publisher thought that mobile, tablets, that type of thing, that was the future. There were those statements made by like Xbox executives back like 2013, 2014. They're like, yeah, we don't even know if there's going to be a next generation. This could be the last generation of consoles. Because everybody thought mobile was where it was going. You know, that's all they cared about was the revenue, and mobile games and microtransactions make stupid amounts of money. So they're like, yeah, that's the future. They say, they're what's hot. The console market is pushing developers away. We've seen a brain drain. Some of the best, most creative game makers are focused on mobile and social games because those platforms are more developer friendly. It's more that they just print money. And the ones who remain focused on console games can't be as creative as they like. So what are they offering? Well, it's time to upend console gaming. All games free to play. Let's open this sucker up. It's time we brought back innovation, experimentation, and creativity to the big screen. Let's make the games less expensive to make and less expensive to buy. With all our technological advancements, shouldn't costs be going down? Gaming could be cheaper. We're handing the reins over to the developer with only one condition. At least some gameplay has to be free. We borrowed the free-to-play model from games like League of Legends, TF2, Triple Town, and many others. Developers can offer a free demo with a full game upgrade, in-game items or powers, or ask you to subscribe. Ouya, the revolution will be televised. Ouya is a new game console for TV powered by Android. We've packed this little box full of power. Developers will have access to Ouya's open design so they can produce their games for the living room, taking advantage of everything the TV has to offer. And best of all, Ouya's world-class controller, that's going to age poorly, console, that's going to end poorly, and interface, that's also going to end very, very poorly, as you'll see, come in one beautiful, inexpensive package. All the games on it will be free, at least to try. And you can see some of the reactions. Founder of In Exile studio, you guys, I'm sure, know very well. This has the potential to be game developers' console, the game developers' console. It's about time. Jordan Mechner, the creator of Prince of Persia. Who wouldn't want a beautiful piece of industrial design that sells for $99, plugs straight into your TV, and gives you access to a huge library of games? And Mojang, developer of Minecraft, says, if Ouya delivers on the promise of being the first true open gaming platform that gives indie devs access to the living room gaming market, yes, that is a great idea. We will follow the development of Ouya and see how it resonates with gamers. I could see all current Mojang games go on the platform if there's demand for it. Lots of people thought this had potential. So what happened? Why do you not know anything about it? Well, a little highlight reel cut in 2016 by the one and only Krabbycat did a great job of explaining it. Let's see his highlight reel. Let's just see what they've got.
Button and reset the entire video game industry.
Ouya is a new game console for the television. More and more people are moving away from the television. Anybody that wants to develop a game for a television, there's a lot of hurdles for developers to get games onto the television.
This is something we even saw on the website. They are obsessed, like she's obsessed with bringing up the television. And I think it's, again, we got to remember back then, 2012, 2013-ish, this was a time where, like, I think Raspberry Pi was relatively new. People were getting excited at the idea of indie development becoming much more possible and open and available to people. And it felt as though there was a huge hurdle between making games and getting those games to consumers other than just on PC, because indie games going to consoles just wasn't really super established yet. There weren't a lot of avenues for that to happen. You know, you didn't have Microsoft coming in and offering people a chance to go on Game Pass if they're an indie game. It just wasn't a thing yet. So they came in and said, we're going to be the solution to that. Like the Ouya will basically be an indie games portal that's kind of like an indie game console by itself. It's not going to run a like AAA modern game from a huge studio. It's not going to run the latest Assassin's Creed or Call of Duty, but it will run indie games made specifically for it. That's at least the pitch.
I love the television, and I want those games on the television. You have a relationship with the television and what's coming at you.
The project having successfully received $8.5 million of funding.
I don't think the majority of people are going to buy it.
When Topolsky asked Julie Ehrman,
is there a game that you feel like is going to be the game yet that brings this to when people see it, they're like, oh, I'm going to spend the $99 because I have to play this game?
She looked off stage and she was like, what's the name of the one that I was playing?
Stalagfight.
The company has also received an additional...
When you are asked, what's the selling game? What's the console selling game on your device? And you answer with 4 question marks at the end. It's not a great response. Like, imagine asking Nintendo, what's going to be the selling, like the console seller for the Switch 2? Mario Kart? Wouldn't instill a lot of confidence.
$15 million in venture capital funding.
They raised another $15 million in venture funding, dude. $15 million. Dude, I've wanted to get into venture capital for so long because so many of these guys just blow money on the stupidest crap. Like, they will invest $50 million into an obvious scam because they think it has potential to blow up. Like, all of those NFT projects, those only existed because venture capitalist firms and investors went in and threw hundreds of millions of dollars at them because they were being told, this is Web3. This is the next evolution of blockchain. You know, Bitcoin, you've heard of Bitcoin? Imagine getting into Bitcoin when it costs 30 cents a coin instead of $60,000. This could be infinite wealth for you if you just got in now. And these guys that have more dollars than cents, let's just say, just threw money at them. It was ridiculous. It's honestly ridiculous. And they threw a lot of money at the Ouya too.
Nothing special about this board. Nothing. Like, nothing, right?
By the way, you don't hear a lot of people when they're promoting their product.
Say that anyone who can go make it?
There's nothing special about this.
The company which owns and operates the E3 Expo called the Los Angeles Police Department yesterday in an attempt to shut down Ouya's public presence at E3 2013.
How many have you sold?
My understanding, because I looked that up, my understanding is basically E3 is at a convention center and then Ouya went to like a nearby like parking lot kind of big space, and they rented that out and then tried to set up their own tents and heavily suggested to attendees that they were part of E3, but they weren't officially part of E3. So E3 tried to get them shut down. They're basically taking people from our conference and then tricking them into coming to their booths and stuff. So it's like, it was a little shady.
Sold.
A lot.
Attempt to shut down Ouya's public presence at E3 2013.
How many have you sold?
A lot.
Can you give me a range?
A lot.
Like,
I feel like we need the Jim can't swim. The subject is clearly very nervous, tapping her hands on the chair the moment she's asked an uncomfortable question. You can tell, based on her smirk, this is the smile of a duper's delight, trying to hide the true numbers, which is the fact that the Ouya has not sold a lot. It's actually sold incredibly poorly.
2013.
How many have you sold?
Immediately.
A lot.
Can you give me a range?
A lot.
Like, you're not going to tell me a number?
No, I'm not.
The Ouya Android console was supposed to ship to Kickstarter supporters in March. But as of today, many of those supporters have yet to receive their console.
Ouya has pushed back the launch date of its console system until June 25th, which is 3 weeks later than when it was originally supposed to ship.
I bought it. It's the Ouya console.
Dreamt by gamers, designed in California.
The designed in California thing, like their Apple, is just so funny to me. Okay, like this is the age. I don't know who any of these guys are, but this is the age of like everybody doing unboxing videos.
Comes with what you need to get coding and get famous.
The little box inside this box has big dreams.
The controller just pops out, so I don't recommend opening it up like that.
And so begins the revolution.
And so begins
Bold move. The revolution.
Thank you for believing. It's probably in here for the Kickstarter.
Here's where all the extra Kickstarter money they got went to.
The company says the launch is delayed because it needs more time to meet high retail demand.
The Ouya is a joke.
Dude, look at that. Not just the age of Best Buy having the big yellow stickers, but also X-Men Origins Wolverine by Activision was on sale for games for Windows. Look at that. Those are the days, man. Imagine going and be like, I gotta go buy my next PC game. Gotta head to Best Buy. Gotta buy the disc.
Ouya's CEO also said the company's making adjustments to improve the controller.
The most important part of this to us is the controller.
We really focus a lot on what gamers are looking for. Precise controls, tactility, right sizing.
Our controller has a touchpad. You're not going to find that somewhere else. And the reality is...
The new PlayStation 4 controller has a touchpad,
That's
doesn't
true.
it?
They could build it for that.
It's a little awkward when you make a very clear, definitive statement. And then it's just like, no. Wrong. Oh, yeah, sorry. Just very awkward. Very, very awkward. Yeah, this was South by Southwest 2013. So I believe that's summer of 2013 is when they're doing this. So it was like a brand new thing. The PS4 like announced controller with a touchpad that was new. So it could just be like a little oversight. You know, she was so used to talking about the talking points of the touchpad being unique and then just kind of space that it's on the PlayStation controller. But still, it is a hilarious oversight when you are making a console and then you're saying you're not going to find a touchpad on another gaming controller. And then like the biggest gaming company in the world in terms of revenue at the time, I believe, comes out and is doing that. It's like, oh, oops.
So the Ouya's controller is awful. The buttons routinely stick after hours, even minutes of use. The right trigger was stuck and had to be pried loose.
It feels very cheaply made. The D-pad is stiff and kind of unresponsive.
It has started to wear from only about a week of use. The controller itself is $50.
You can also just tell by looking at it that it's super cheap. You know, it's just got that vibe to it.
The controller is literally half the price of the system.
There we go. New account. Here we go.
Payment.
This is not a great way to start Ouya. Let me just make that perfectly clear.
Sony fucking gets hacked all the time, and we're gonna trust Ouya with your information?
Yeah, right.
Ouya was made to be opened, so hardware hackers can mess around with it. And the other big addition is the fan, so that you can really crank performance of these games.
Yeah, look at that. Talk about overclockability. Just look at that monster cooler they got on there.
Right. With over 600 games free to try, there's something for everyone.
There are no games on the Ouya. 99% of these apps are just little clones of Candy Crush and Angry Birds.
It's Mike Tyson on a motorcycle. What more could you ask for?
The caliber of games is also lacking.
Many are good for 20 minutes of novelty, but I found myself getting bored quickly and never revisiting them.
$60? This game sucks. $60? Oh, I could have bought food.
What a marketing campaign that is. Wow.
Ouya.
We created a gateway to the independent gaming revolution.
Just rain. That's all it is. It's just rain on your screen, just like that. Really? Yeah, I'm not kidding. What? What's going on over?
Babes by Fossum.tv or HeTV. Like, it's the evolution of gaming. Yes, half of it is porn, but it's the evolution of gaming.
Absolutely check it out. What is going on? Absolutely. What is happening?
We believe that every single game you should try before you buy.
The Ouya no longer requires games to be free to play. Now this latest change feels like another kick in the teeth for Kickstarter backers, as a free to try feature was one of the main selling points of the console.
Yeah, we just read that. And they walked it back. Dude, they had 226 pledgers, or backers, I guess, that pledged more than $1,300. 600 people pledged over 700. What? Help you promote your game for 1 year, and your games will be marked with a founder emblem.
It's slow, and it's not working that well, and everything just seems off.
The settings, you'll see it's entirely unchanged from what you would find on your phone.
If they do not give me a fix for it this week, I will film myself pissing on the Ouya.
Like many of the games that are on the system, the Ouya is very rough. It's unfinished.
You just have to rethink television gaming. It's about taking advantage of the most immersive device we have with the best controller and creating a new experience.
Ouya is...
You can tell that they got this money in from the Kickstarter, and they started thinking, you know what? This is a revolution. And they really started buying into their own hype, and they kind of lost sight of what it was, which was indie devs thought that this could be a cool open platform to allow people to play indie games on their TV. Even to this day, there's not like a lot of outside platforms to make that possible. I mean, I like the Steam Link when they had that, because you could plug that into your TV and basically stream from your gaming computer in your bedroom or studio or whatever, and then stream that up to the Steam Link and cast basically whatever game, so you could play it off of your computer. They eventually shut all that down. And now there's like the NVIDIA Shield, I think. Is that still a thing? There's some other devices that can sort of do it. But there's not like a totally open source platform. There's Game Pass, which has a lot of indie games on it, but still you need like an Xbox. They are opening that up where now like Samsung has their game hub, so you can stream xCloud directly to the TV without needing a separate device. You can like pair an Xbox controller straight to a Samsung TV, which is kind of a cool thing. But there's not a whole lot of like, there's not an open platform. There is a Steam Deck. You can get the dock. I think it's like $90 for the dock, and you can do that. But even that, you have to dock it, and then you have to plug it all in, and then it casts up to the TV. And you might need a separate, like, well, you will need a separate controller. You might need another keyboard as well. But that's probably the closest, is just having a Steam Deck with that dock. You can do it technically with the ROG Ally. I've never tried it though, but there's some things you can do with it.
Is now on the auction block. It is horribly in debt, and it has made no money, and it is screwed.
They're gonna have to sell the company to make money to refund the investors.
So basically what happened is Razer bought Ouya.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
I was trying to think why they would buy them. And we don't know how much they bought them for, as far as I'm aware. But I'm guessing Razer bought them for like customer lists, customer information, things like that. Because I don't think they really would have gotten much anything or much else out of it.
So basically what happened is Razer bought Ouya.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Yeah.
After a few months of rumors regarding Ouya's future, CEO and co-founder Julie Ehrman revealed the acquisition on Twitter Day. Ehrman also hinted at her own departure from the company, stating, quote, "Ouya was once in a lifetime experience. Now I'm off to find the next. Stay tuned."
Is she still around? J-U-H-R man. J-U-H-R man. Yeah. She's still doing stuff. She is the co-founder and president of Where Angel City FC, bringing a new era of sport, impact, and entertainment to LA. Get Loud LA, proud mom of 2. So she founded like a football club? Is that what this is? I mean, props to her for being like an entrepreneur and just staying on the grind. But what a strange transition to like go from the Ouya to this. Huh. Huh. From Ouya to women's soccer. Yeah. I mean, oh no, the website's broken. Oh no. Oh no. Julie, we got to fix that. Co-founder and president. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would guess she probably would have a tough time. No, it's the domain suspended. Oh no, it's going to be dropped from the registry on August 21st. Oh, we couldn't have timed this better. Oh God. Okay, well, Julie, it's going down. She's still posting stuff about it, but your website's broken. That's kind of funny. But you see, still followed by Digital Foundry, Jeff Keighley, and Jacob Novak, who is the CEO, director of business at Square Enix Holdings, previous director. So that's just funny. Okay, well, who knew? Who knew? England named it soccer and then gets all pissy when Americans call it soccer. Oh, football. You mean football? That's funny. She used that Ouya money for a soccer team. They very well could have burnt through all of that Ouya money. I'm not convinced that they have a lot left over. Yeah, I mean, it's... I don't know if they would have money left over after all that. She hit one banger. Yeah, I mean, the fact that they raised $8.5 million shows that there was something about that people liked and connected with. But it was just terrible execution. And at the end of the day, once it came out, I think it was fundraised based on like developers who thought it had potential. So, and that's what you saw. I mean, you saw all of those interviews were with devs and stuff. So they raised money from developers that were like, oh, cool, we can put our indie games on this, and then people could play something like Minecraft easily on their big TV. Again, before it was like mainstream to have those games on console, because this is like 2011, 2012 when they started pitching it. And as a result, people threw money at them, but they never stopped to ask, wait, do consumers want this? Will customers actually purchase it? Which was the big thing. And it didn't really matter, you know, because nobody really wanted it. England named aluminum and gets mad at US for that too. Oh, you mean they're aluminium? Oh, man. That's so funny. Anyway, so that's the story of the Ouya. It is still technically purchasable. You can find it on eBay. Let's see the stats. A Tegra 3 quad-core processor. Amazing Gaming 2012. This is what it was able to run. Okay, that's not bad. Again, 2012. Dude, the music in these old trailers is so funny. Glow Ball. You could play Glow Ball. Okay. Shadowgun THD. But like, obviously, was this going to compete with other games that came out in like 2013? Like, no. But that's the thing is, I think when people thought of console, they were comparing it to the PS3 and Xbox One. And like the PS3 is just coming out swinging with like The Last of Us, you know? And it's just like cutting edge and amazing even today. But these games, even for 2012 or 2013, I'm like, oh, I don't think that these are going to move a lot of consoles. Tell you what. So that's the processor, a gig of RAM, 8 gigabytes of internal storage, HDMI with support for up to 1080p, Bluetooth LE 4.0, Wi-Fi 802.11 and BGN, USB 2.0, wireless controller with standard controls, Android 4.0, and Ethernet was added. I don't know, man. We've come a long way. The user interface and industrial designs are far along. Our prototype is up and running, and what we have left to do is simple, but it's expensive. We're looking at you, Mark Cuban, Woz. Help us out. They wanted to go on like Shark Tank and get even more money. And again, they raised another $15 million from venture capital. So they had like 23 million to do this. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Like, it's a piece of gaming history. It's a piece of gaming history. You can't forget about it. But that was the last time there was like a big and very well-known attempt to get into the console market that was legitimate. Obviously, like Soulja Boy had his console that was just a repackaged Chinese console from like AliExpress or Ouya or Temu or something, but still. Yeah, look at all that. I think a lot of people bought this, literally never plugged it in, or maybe plugged it in once and never touched it again. Just look at all this. It's pretty rare to have some of these still new in box. I mean, it's 2013, I think, is when it launched. So, or it was December of 2012, as they said, when it was going to be delivered. So if we say like, I don't even know, maybe new in box, just PS4 launch. I guess it would be a launch PS4. New sealed PS4 launch. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it says new in box, still taped and sealed. Wow. Wow. What are the odds of that? This guy's trying to sell it for $3,500. That's wild, dude. Is this the launch one? It sure looks like it. I bet somebody else way more capable than me would be able to tell if this is actually like a launch one. But still, they say it's the CUH 1001A serial number, so or model number. Buy it, Luke. At least I can help somebody with a mistake they made a decade ago. I'm getting this rare limited edition bronze Ouya Kickstarter one. I don't even know. Like, how much would they have had to pay to get this in the day? This is a rare limited edition one. It's a must-have for any video game enthusiast or collector. The console is designed to provide an enjoyable gaming experience with a sleek and compact design. Tell me ChatGPT wrote the description without telling me ChatGPT wrote the description. That's so funny. Dude, there's so many of these things. Like nobody wants it. Nobody wants it. There's people selling it for like $25. One guy was selling it for $6. I'm like, everybody's like, please take this from me. I don't want it anymore. I don't want it anymore. The original gray Ouya is more iconic. Yeah, I think you're probably right. They say it's untested, so it probably doesn't work. Look at that. It's nasty though. What is on the controller pads? Like, it's like schnozzed up. Oh yes. Just to give you an idea of what the product is like. That's so funny. I mean, what do they say about it? It's been used. Not tested. Auction is for items pictured only. No HDMI or power supply. Oh, there's no power supply, so you can't even start it. Yeah, it probably doesn't matter. I mean, like, I'm going to plug this in. Buying it on eBay, it's probably filled with like all sorts of crap anyways. All sorts of viruses. They just load it up. But it's a little piece of gaming history. That's wild. Cool Ranch Dorito fingers. It kind of looks like that, dude. Kind of looks like that. Every time I see any wear on something like that, I'm like, somebody actually played with that? Somebody actually used it? Man. Okay. Oh, they dropped the tech specs or PC specs for Star Wars Outlaws as well. Should we take a look-see? Real quick. Okay. Ready? News segment! We did already look at the new trailer earlier in the stream. We did see that, but this just dropped like a few minutes ago. Star Wars Outlaws PC specs and features revealed. Okay, ray traced global illumination will be featured. RTX dynamic illumination support. DLSS 3.5 with ray reconstruction, frame generation, and super resolution. Intel XESS 1.3, AMD FSR 3. In-depth customization options, uncapped frame rate, 21 by 9 cinematic display mode, and multi-monitor and ultra-wide support. Multi-monitor? Oh, just for like if you had 3 monitors for ultra-wide, then you could do... Okay, I'm tracking. Okay. Here are the PC specs. This is the PC spec sheet. Let's see what we got. We have minimum settings. This is to achieve 1080p at 30 FPS on low with upscaler set to quality. So 30 FPS, 1080p low with upscaling, not even native. That will require at least a GTX 1660 6 gig. Okay. So, I mean, it is an ambitious game. I'm not sure if that really surprises me. An i7 8700K or a Ryzen 3600, Ryzen 5 3600, 16 gigs of dual channel RAM, Windows 10 or 11 with DirectX 12, and 65 gigs is what they anticipate the game taking to install. Interesting. Recommended 1080p 60 FPS at high with the upscaler turned on. They say you'll need a 3060 or a 6700 XT, an i5 10400 or a Ryzen 5 5600X, and then 16 gigs of RAM. It's going to be the same across the board, and also 65 gigs. Enthusiast is 1440p at 60 on high. That you'll need a 4070 to achieve with an 11600K or a 5800X. And then the Ultra is to achieve 4K at 60 frames on Ultra with the upscaler turned on, they recommend a 4080 or a 7900 XTX, and then a 12700K at least, or a Ryzen 7 5800 X3D. Honestly, about where I would expect it to land. I'm still kind of frustrated, honestly, that so many of these games are just built with the assumption you're going to be using upscalers. I love the upscalers. NVIDIA's DLSS 3.5 is basically magic. Like, let's just be honest. It's basically magic. You can be playing something like Cyberpunk 2077 with overdrive ray tracing turned on, and then you just flip a couple switches. You flip the frame generation and then the ray reconstruction. And it's just like, it'll straight up double your frames. And it doesn't feel any different to play. It's outrageous. I love it. It's as close to magic as we've had in terms of technical advancements in gaming in the last decade. But it's still just kind of frustrating to me that games are now being optimized with that in mind, because it feels like the bar has lowered a bit, you know? It feels like the bar is lowered. Even the minimum specs that they give are to run it at 30 FPS at 1080p on low with an upscaler turned on. And I guess this is just the new standard. This is just what we're doing now. FSR, DLSS, XeSS, all of those upscalers are just now part of the standard. So I suppose it's just what's expected to be achieved. Like, that's, if you want it, if you want to play any of these games, they just are anticipating that you're going to do it. Rendering natively is just not that feasible anymore. Which, it's one thing if the games graphically are so impressive that they kind of require that. It's like, yeah, you're going to need to crank it. Just like Overdrive with Cyberpunk. I get it, but at least that's scalable enough. You could play it rendering natively if you wanted to, just for the sharpness. But having said that, it is still just kind of like, yeah, the specs are heavy. I would say they're on the heavier side, but it does kind of click with what I've seen of the game. Except for that IGN clip. That IGN clip, it would surprise me. That looked like minimum specs, honestly. I would guess that that's what that was. But if you could imagine it, it's like, you know, Series S. I think PS5 and Xbox Series consoles probably run at like enthusiast level. Maybe 1440p at 30 or 1080p at 60, depending on if they have a performance mode or not. And then Ultra is, of course, just PC. If you have a strong enough PC to run that, then great. But that's basically how it splits. But nothing crazy as far as I can tell. And install size being 65 gigs is somewhat refreshing. I was kind of braced for it to be like, yep, 200 gigs, because that's just what we're doing now, apparently. But that's it's not bad. It's not bad. Let me catch up on these super chats real quick. Milan Yannick, thank you for the 2. Hey, Luke, do you know Endrial? It's on Steam. Love your vids. Endrial, that sounds really familiar. It's a total conversion mod of Bethesda Softworks' Elder Scrolls V, developed by Shore AI as a sequel to Nerium at Fate's Edge. It was released in July of 2016, initially in German only. Makes Skyrim look like it's amateur. Yeah, I haven't really dug into this. I think I've heard the name before, but I haven't dug into it myself. But it's a total conversion mod of Skyrim that just overhauls everything, it seems. Interesting. Yeah, look at that. I'll have to check it out. I'll keep the tab open. I'll check that out. I mean, it looks super, super cool. Thank you for the suggestion. Thank you. Grant, also, thank you for the 5. Hey, Luke, do you think graphics are capable of advancing, or do you think they'll be stuck where they are right now with the current generation? I think they'll be stuck until we start to see what, like, Santa Monica and Naughty Dog have been doing, and then that'll raise the bar a bit. But it seems like, in general, everything's just kind of at a standstill right now, which is like, Black Myth looks like it's going to be a graphical powerhouse when it's working, but beyond that, it doesn't seem like a lot of the other stuff that's coming is particularly phenomenal. But I think once we get like Doom, I think once we get Like Fable really looks to be graphically insane. So once we see that, like actually running with gameplay, I think that could be really impressive. But I think 2025 is when we'll see the next big leap with some of those big games that are coming. Shiro, did you cover the Activision Call of Duty 4 Gotham moment? I don't think so. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Call of Duty 4 Gotham moment. I think I need more than that. I saw there was some scandal with Activision where they shut down a mod, I think it was. Yeah, today our team members received a cease and desist order on behalf of Activision Publishing in relation to the H2M mod project. We are complying with this order and shutting down all operations immediately and permanently. Yeah, dude, they're just shooting themselves in the foot. But that's the thing, is people are going to be very upset about it, but they're still going to be, like, it's not going to affect Call of Duty. They're still just going to get money printed. So... yeah, we haven't done like a deep dive into it. I got to do some more reading on it, but it's just another example of these big companies that are doing something everybody dislikes, but they're going to get away with it. Like, it's not going to have any real permanent effect. I'll tell you that right now. Call of Duty's still going to make billions. Like, yeah. Iric, thank you for the super chat as well. Just wanted to shout out the Arc browser. It's utterly amazing and actually good for streaming if you want a separate profile so info don't leak out. All in one browser. 10 out of 10. Recommend. Not a sponsor, but maybe one day. Arc browser. Arc, the browser company. Interesting. Yeah, looks streamlined. Looks clean. Maybe I'll check that out. Thank you for the suggestion. Yeah, I've been using Opera. I like Opera. I think it does what I need it to do for all of this stuff. I like a lot of the customization stuff that it has. And they've, you know, of course we've done sponsorships with them before, and that's when I started checking it out a lot more intensely, but that's why I use it here. They do have some really cool mods and stuff. They are missing a couple of plugins I'd like a highlighter plugin, like I have on Chrome, but I actually started using it because the Google Chrome was glitching out so bad with so many things. John, also thank you for the 5. Thank you for the 5. Hey, what do you think about the Wolverine game coming to suing PlayStation, and do you think it'll be one of the bigger releases for this generation? Coming to suing, maybe you just mean soon to, I think you just are referring to the Wolverine game. I mean the Wolverine game is far off. It might even be a PlayStation 6 game, so it's far off. Having said that, I think it'll be probably a really good get. Insomniac is really good at what they do, but it's a long ways off. But I think it'll be refreshing to get something from them that's not Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man 1, really solid. Miles Morales, okay, you did some stuff, okay. And then they did, of course, Spider-Man 2, which to me just wasn't that exciting. Spider-Man 2 was like, okay, that was solid. Not that amazing or exciting, but like probably an 8.5 out of 10. Like it's just kind of shorter. Not that crazy in my view. But I think it's because like the first game spoiled us so much. It was, yeah, I think you're right, Folly. It was just very safe. It was a super safe sequel. Which, I mean, when you're talking about a game that cost, by some reporting, $300 million to make, can you really blame them for playing it safe? Like, I don't blame them really, but as a consumer that bought it hoping for them to just go crazy, I was a little underwhelmed. But I think them doing something totally different could be really interesting. In the same way, I think Horizon Forbidden West was also pretty safe. So to see them try to do something totally different with this multiplayer game could also be interesting. We'll see. Mohammed, when is the Witcher 3 video coming out, like Starfield? Don't know for sure yet. I have sort of a general idea internally with what we're doing, working on it. I don't want to say yet because I don't want to disappoint anybody in case we have to push it back, but I am working on it actively. I mean, even yesterday on stream, we referred to some of the footage I had just captured. So we're actively working on it, but obviously big videos take a long time. Does God of War Ragnarok still have the BS PSN requirement for PC? Yeah. I've not seen anything that they are getting rid of that. Because they're just setting all of this up to get their own launcher. It's not even really a mystery. Like, that's what they're doing. So, buckle up, buckaroo for that. Wait, what, dude? Hold on. Hold on, wait. New segment. So Bethesda Game Studios, still to this day, on official channels, has not acknowledged Fallout London, as far as I can see anywhere, looking at all this. But you know what they just did? People were saying that the reason they weren't acknowledging it is because if they acknowledged a big mod, they would be forced, their lawyers would be forced to step in and shut it down. But guess what they just did? Guess what they just did? You're right. We should like this. Guess what our Lord and Savior, the King himself, what his group just did that makes all of that total nonsense now. Yes, I'm using a cigar lighter to light a candle that has Todd Howard's face on it. They just... Oh, it smells so good, too. It's pumpkin scone. Pumpkin vanilla scone. That's what Todd actually smells like in real life, by the way. They just shouted out the Skyblivion mod team. Which, to be clear, that's good. It's good that they shouted it out because these modders do amazing, amazing work. But the whole justification, the whole defense that like BGS stands were yelling about them not referencing Fallout London, despite Fallout London, everybody saying being like the best Fallout game in years and years and years. They said they weren't acknowledging it because if they did, they'd have to shut them down. So really, it's actually a good thing they're not referencing it. But they're referencing this one. So now that there's just isn't a defense, apparently. There isn't a defense for why they're not shouting out Fallout London. Like, isn't that just weird? Like, it's odd. Again, I'm glad they shouted it out. My point is they should also be shouting out Fallout London, which many people are calling like the best Fallout game since New Vegas, which is pretty funny. It's a mod for Fallout 4, and people are saying it's better than Fallout 4, and it's certainly better than Fallout 76. And they're like, yeah, it's big enough to basically be its own game. It's awesome. We love it. And they've refused to acknowledge it. And it struck us all as weird. It stood out strangely because we're all like, why aren't they acknowledging? Like, it seems pretty clear that they should be like, good job, guys. You did great. And there's been other stuff that's been weird about it. The head of the Fallout London project, he did an interview with BBC. And in that interview, they asked him, have you gotten any congratulations or good jobs or anything from Bethesda Game Studios? And he said, nope, we haven't heard a word, which was kind of odd. And they're also weirded out by it. They're like, obviously, we're not entitled to anything. but it's a little weird they haven't acknowledged it when other developers and studios are acknowledging our mod for their game. They won't even acknowledge the mod themselves. And then and people are like, okay, well, maybe they're doing it again to actually help them, because if they acknowledged it, there'd be some legal requirement or something. But here you see them acknowledging another overhaul mod that literally combines the names of 2 of their trademarks, Skyblivion, and they're acknowledging that one. So it just doesn't really make any sense. And it does just, again, feel like there is a strange bitterness whenever somebody comes out with a mod that, or really does anything, that makes Bethesda feel uncomfortable or insecure about their own capabilities. They just ignore it. It's why they were so weird about New Vegas for years and years and years and years. Because everybody's like, yep. You know that team that made a spin-off game based on the stuff that you had done in 2008? Yeah, that's way better than what you did in 2008 and in 2015. And so they're really weird about it. And then this time around, they're also being kind of weird. I don't know, not trying to defend Bethesda, but maybe it's because Fallout is a more active IP for Fallout. I mean, they're literally about to launch Elder Scrolls 6. Like they're about to kick off another big one. They just announced another Elder Scrolls adjacent mobile game. Oh God, what the hell? This is why I can't ever go on X anymore, because it's just, there's so many weird posts. Thankfully, my screen capture wasn't on. I pulled it up. I hit the back button, and it just goes to like 2 people making out on the homepage. I'm like, Jesus Christ. But this, like, they're literally just announcing this 5 hours ago. They have this post about, and they repost it about the Elder Scrolls Castles, the new mobile game that they're coming out with. So Elder Scrolls, if anything, is more active in terms of game development than even Fallout is. Because other than Fallout 76, occasional updates and expansions, they don't have anything else coming. But they're releasing new Elder Scrolls games. So even that, like the Elder Scrolls franchise is more active, I think, than Fallout. There's more stuff happening there. So maybe they acknowledge only the ones under the Creation Con? Probably. I don't know. But at the very least, it's not clear. It's just, there's just a weird funk around it. And this is not the first time this has happened. And it's just really uncomfortable and strange to hear them acknowledge another big overhaul mod and then continue to ignore the big one that already launched, that's out right now, that people love and say is the best Fallout thing we've gotten in years and years and years. It's just weird. And I think that they should come out and say, good job. They should acknowledge it. And there's been other stuff they've done that's weird. Like they were supposed to launch Fallout London back in April. And they had to delay it because Bethesda randomly dropped unannounced the next gen update. Now, of course, nobody's entitled to news. They're not entitled to know that that's coming. It was a big surprise shadow drop that broke everything. So they wanted that breaking of everything to be a surprise. I get it. It's exciting to have everything break. So they decided to do that without telling anybody. Okay. Still kind of a dick move. You know, the biggest mod that's happened for Fallout ever is about to launch, because nobody's going to tell me they aren't aware of it. I mean, they've got hundreds and hundreds of employees. They knew that that was coming, and they decided to issue that update and like break everything. So they had to delay the mod after that. And they said what they wanted to do was to make Fallout London available on Steam through like the workshop program. So basically you could hit a little add to my version of Fallout, press the button, it installs everything through Steam, and you're good to go. They couldn't do that, so they went to GOG, which is owned by CDPR, who develops some of the games that directly compete with Bethesda Game Studios titles, and they provided them a platform to allow for easy installing of Fallout London. Like they literally went to the competitor, and they did a better job of supporting the mod for their competitor's game than Bethesda could do themselves. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. Say read the post, the comments on the post. Let's see. I wish you guys would talk to Xbox so we can get these awesome mods on consoles. See all tomorrow. Jesus. Humanity at its finest. Fallout London also deserves your attention. They did an amazing job, or made an amazing job. Did Fallout London ever get to do one of these with Bethesda? I mean, people are bringing it up at least a couple of times. That's a great post, Bethesda. Actual bot comment. But like, this is just what's weird about it, is they just did the thing. They did the thing. They're going to do like an actual creation mod con stream about it, but they're just going to ignore Fallout London, like the biggest mod that's actually released for any of their games ever. It's just weird. It's just weird. So, I've tried to decipher Bethesda, and all you can really go and land at is either they are incompetent and they just don't really know what they're doing at any given moment. So they sent out this thing. They're going to do a collaboration with Skyblivion, but they didn't do one with Fallout London because they just forgot to send the email or something. Or there is something really petty and stupid going on where like they're bitter about the reception of Fallout London, so they refuse to acknowledge it until he gets in an interview and is like, yeah, they did a great job. I'm really proud of them. But that's all they're ever going to get. Meanwhile, they're actively like sabotaging their efforts to launch by by not giving them heads up for anything or talking to them or acknowledging them at all. Or there's some legal something or other that's at play, but this seems to directly conflict with that. And even then, based on the people I've spoken to, I had it's a long story, but I had a call with an attorney for something very separate from all of this. And I just like off the cuff was like, can I ask you a really random question? If you're going to charge me, like, I just want to ask, but can I just ask you a really random question? He was like, sure. And I asked him about this. And I was like, is it the case that, that if somebody has a trademark, like a company has a trademark, and then somebody does something with that trademark roughly adjacent to it, that acknowledgement of the other party that's sort of doing something with the trademark, would that mandate then legal action to be taken, like cease and desists and stuff? He's like, well, it wouldn't mandate. Their knowledge of it would mandate it. So if they knew about Fallout, or if not Fallout, if they knew about the thing that is potentially infringing on their trademark, then they are obligated to do it. And if it's something really well known, then they're just obligated to respond. He's like, but you can always just get around that by just signing away access to the trademark. It's like, that's super easy. It's like, oh, so even if that is true, even if it is true that acknowledgement of Skyblivion means that they would have to go and file a trademark cease and desist or something, they can just have the team at Skyblivion sign a piece of paper that says you have permission to use the Skyrim and Oblivion trademarks in combination with the title Skyblivion. They could do that also with Fallout London. So it just doesn't make any sense. Blake, I emailed the people I know from Bethesda. The one person that got back to me on this topic was basic, and I didn't, like, of course, take this all with a grain of salt. It's one person. The reason I didn't make the video talking about it is because I wasn't able to confirm it with two people, which is typically how I try to set the standard. If I hear from two people independently that like work in different departments or clearly like haven't talked to each other, then I can corroborate it. So if one person over here says, oh yeah, they told us not to talk about Fallout London, my boss did, or a coworker did, and then a guy that works over here says the same thing, boom, it's confirmed by two independent sources or relatively independent sources. I can go and then put that out there because I'm very, very confident that those sources are telling the truth. But I've only heard it from one person, and that one person, again, take it with a grain of salt because it's not confirmed by two. That one person said that they were told by a coworker not to talk about Fallout London. And the coworker alluded to it came from the higher ups. What to make of that, I don't know. I don't know if that means that the other employee was literally just like, it's not worth talking about. Just keep your head down, do what we're doing. The fact that corporate hasn't talked about it probably means we shouldn't talk about it either. Or maybe he's alluding to the fact that maybe he's alluding to an executive sending an email memo or something to everybody saying, don't acknowledge it. I don't know. My guess is it's probably the unspoken rule in the office. Hey, Todd and the marketing teams aren't acknowledging it, so we should probably stay quiet because we don't want to step out of line. That would be my guess. But again, I haven't heard from 2 independent people, so I've only heard from 1. So make of that what you will. I hope if other people are able to get a hold of their contacts and confirm, that would be awesome. If other people have contacts that they could talk to, maybe then we could confirm it, but just notice the candle. Isn't that funny? Spencer, thank you for the 5, by the way. It goes even deeper. Click on the first comment about London under that post. They shouted them out in 2022 and they can't now because it uses stolen assets. Hold on, let's see. Humanity Fallout London, this one. Legally they can't because Fallout London uses assets from other things. Terrible explanation, but they legally can't. They still can celebrate them. No, am I mistaken? They can't promote something that uses stolen assets. What's your source for them using stolen assets? Fallout London, playing it or watching someone play it. Bethesda also typically doesn't mention mods like this one. Fallout Frontier is a good example. Why? Yeah, it's not a Bethesda game, but you never know what's hidden in the mod. They promoted it. So his source for them using stolen assets is that he's seen gameplay. I need more than that. Like, that is a serious accusation. And they're just not going to follow up on it. But this one, for September, we're highlighting the modding team behind Fallout London. Hear what challenges and inspirations they encountered while aiming to create one of Fallout 4's most ambitious modding projects in this month's featured modder article. So they have acknowledged it, but they refuse to address it now. Weird. Weird. So why wouldn't they acknowledge it now? It's one big headache. They talk about it 2 years before it launches, and then it comes out, is received amazingly well, and then they don't talk about it. That just hurts my brain. Like, I don't understand. Like, you already did the hard part. You acknowledged it. Okay, so why aren't you acknowledging it when it launches? Todd, your ways are a mystery. Your ways are like the seas. Oh, man. Yeah, we acknowledged it 2 years ago. We don't have to ever reference it again. Most likely a drama issue. I mean, like, this demonstrates that at the very least, the claims that they can't acknowledge it for legal reasons is actually out the window. Like, here, this was already weird. They acknowledged this. They acknowledged another mod, so clearly they're allowed to acknowledge other mods. And then, like, this link here, and thank you for bringing this up, Spencer. So they've acknowledged it in the past, officially. But now that the game is actually, or the mod is actually out, they just refuse to acknowledge it and talk about it. Like, even down to other people within the team, like Emil. Like, I don't think Emil has referenced it at all either. And this is like the head writer for Fallout 4, for Fallout 3, for Starfield. and just no acknowledgement. Isn't that weird? I hate that that's the only thing I can conclude from it. It's just that it is weird. But when literally no one that works there and the corporate bigwigs, like nobody is acknowledging the biggest mod for their games ever and the best received mod that they've ever had, probably, at least on this scale. When they've already done the hard part of acknowledging it once 2 years ago. It's just strange, man. Maybe they have a policy not to talk about stuff that's already released, but I just don't like even that. They're doing other stuff for other big mods that are coming out, and it just gives me a headache. It just gives me a headache. The whole thing. They're too focused on leather jackets, I guess, man. Maybe they're busy playing it. Maybe. Todd's brain is an enigma. It is. It is. My cat is sitting on my like in front of one of our Ring doorbell cameras, and he's just like looking at the camera. Please let me in. It's hot outside. Oh man. Anyway. So all of that to say, because that's what I say a lot. It's one of my verbal tics. Luke, all of that to say, Stevens, all of that to say, I don't know what the hell is going on with this. The more I find out about Bethesda and Fallout London, the weirder it is. And maybe it is as simple as just, they're like, we acknowledged it 2 years ago and we don't need to acknowledge it again. They're not entitled to our attention, so we're not going to give it to them. And maybe that's all it is. It's just kind of like a sassy, petty, weird thing. Maybe there's a policy not to acknowledge or talk about mods when they launch, but only in the years leading up to it. So maybe that's what this is. You know, they're like, yeah, just a heads up, Skyblivion, once we do this, we're not going to talk about you next year, okay? Maybe that's the policy. Still, like, all they ever gave to Fallout London was a single post, a modder highlight, and after that, that's it. And apparently they've never even like spoken to the Fallout London guys. The Fallout London director was like, yeah, they won't respond to emails. They won't acknowledge us. They won't talk to us. They won't, like, nothing. The whole thing is just weird. Somebody in the chats and in the replies of some of these posts are saying they can't acknowledge it because of stolen assets. But when they're asked how you know that the assets are stolen, they just say, because I played it or I saw videos of it. And that's not really, that's not really a great piece of evidence. Your Honor, the plaintiff, he killed a guy. Really? How do you know he killed a guy? Because I saw it. Trust me. Like, that's literally all he's got. So maybe that is the case. Even then, I'm not sure, you know, what the expectation or standard would be. But still, maybe that is the case. But I'm going to need more evidence than trust me, bruh. From an anonymous user on X. But whatever's going on, it's funky, it's weird. I think they should still acknowledge it. They've already acknowledged it once. So all of those people defending Bethesda saying, nope, they can't reference it because they'd be in legal trouble. Bada bing, bada boom. Shout out to Spencer for telling me about this. They did acknowledge it 2 years ago. So that clearly is not a good enough excuse. So what's the deal? Why can't they just at least acknowledge it and give them credit? It just seems stinky. And that's it. Witnesses are considered evidence. Witnesses are. Hearsay is not. Hearsay is just when you're like, I said something about this. That's just hearsay. Witnesses giving testimony is evidence, but hearsay is not evidence. And that's just hearsay. Anyway, so I'm going to go let my cat in because he's been a good boy waiting outside. There he is again. He's please, Dad, it's hot out here. So I'm going to go let my cat back inside and blast the AC because it's very hot in here. You guys are wonderful. I appreciate the gosh darn heck out of every single one of you for making my dreams a reality. Much love. Go watch the new video on Concord that just went up that Joraptor dared me to make. I did make it, so go check that out. And beyond that, thank you. We'll be back next week, first thing Monday. And Monday we'll be playing, I don't think Black Myth Wukong launches until the evening. So we'll be probably talking about a lot of other stuff more, but we'll do that. Anyway, much love, everybody. I'll see you very, very soon. Hugs and kisses. Thank you for all of those. Real quick, John, top 5 games the past decade. Thank you for the super chat. I think my top 5, Tears of the Kingdom, Red Dead, Witcher 3. My tummy stomach is rumbling. I don't know if you can hear that. It's like, Witcher 3, Red Dead, Tears of the Kingdom. I'm trying to think through all of the ones that have launched in the last, Concord, of course. Baldur's Gate 3, of course, can't forget that. One more random. Elden Ring. Elden Ring's a good pick. Probably Elden Ring. I think that's a solid choice. I think that's a solid 5. And then also, John, thank you for the 5. Hey, what do you think about Wolverine game? Oh, I did read that one. Okay, so we're caught up. Shout out to Premature Flea, also for subbing with Prime over on Twitch. You guys are wonderful. I love you dearly. I'll see you soon. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.